visitors from abroad, Mr. Cesar Alierta of the Telefonica Foundation and representatives of Telefonica and ProFuturo, Mr. Fadi Yare from the Ministry of Education and Higher Education, Mr. Berj Satrakian and Madame Noura Jumblat, founding director of Kayani, both of whom helped greatly bring us all together today. Mr. Luciano Celestini, representative of UNICEF in Lebanon, Ms. Mireille Girard, representative in Lebanon of UNHCR, representatives of the varied and important organizations providing educational services in marginalized communities in Lebanon, including international humanitarian organizations, UNHCR and UNICEF, foundations, and grassroots NGOs. On behalf of the American University of Beirut, I would like to welcome you and express how happy we are to host a roundtable discussion such as this. AUB's mission includes service to society, and this has been the case since its founding over 150 years ago. As a university, we are particularly able to positively impact society as a hub for innovation in humanitarian intervention and as a convener of experts, not just academics, but the experts like you who do the groundwork day in and day out, always striving to better serve marginalized populations. A major goal of AUB's strategic plan for 2030 is to re-establish the university's unique position in fostering productive dialogues at the crossroads of civilization and contribute more effectively to an increasingly globalized and technologically enhanced and connected world. Accordingly, the focus of today's discussion is especially salient for us. ProFuturo's digital classroom represents an important application of technology to increase access to quality education for children from marginalized and underserved communities. I commend your commitment to the education of marginalized youth and wish you a successful meeting with a productive discussion. Just before I ask Madame Noura Jumblat to share her remarks, I want to briefly introduce you to our facilitator, Mrs. Maha Shaib, who many of you probably know. Unfortunately, Mr. Rabia Shibli will not be able to join us today due to family emergency, although he and the staff of the Center for Civic Engagement and Community Service have addressed every detail to make today's meeting a success. Mrs. Maha Shaib has been the director of the Center for Lebanese Studies since 2012, and her research focuses on the sociology and politics of education, particularly equity and equality in education and the implications of politicizing the education system, particularly in marginalized groups. Over the past 5 years, Maha has been occupied with the education response to the Syrian refugee crisis in Lebanon. She has headed a number of research studies looking at access and quality of education for refugees and the bottlenecks. She has a PhD in education and an MPhil in education research from the University of Cambridge. She has also served as a senior fellow at St. Antony's College, University of Oxford, and teaches part-time at the Lebanese American University. Thank you, Maha, for facilitating the discussion. I now invite Madame Noura Jumblat to share her remarks.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Alierta, welcome to all. I wasn't aware I was supposed to speak, so I don't have any written remarks. However, I think I know almost everybody, and I represent if you would like, the NGO sector, and I'm happy to see some of my colleagues here, it has been a struggle for now, at least for many of us in this, in education with the refugee children in Lebanon. Mr. Fadi Yara has always been a wonderful advocate of our cause to help us on the ground. There is, of course, the Ministry of Education and Higher Education, and there is the INGO and the NGO sectors that are both giving education in Lebanon. I think there are better experts to talk about it. I will just say that we hope that one day non-formal education can be validated and that we could really reach the largest number of children who are in need of an education, who are in need of a diploma, they are in need of a better future. I think our friends who are here today, Mr. Alerta and the Foundation and Telefonica Foundation, would be a wonderful opportunity if we were able to implement their program, their digital program that is being implemented worldwide, I think in many, many countries, whether in Africa and South America. I just hope we can do that with the help of everybody. I think the sector that we need to also reach is not only the students who are in formal education, the students who are getting non-formal education and informal education. However, there's a big section of children that are not getting any education. And I think this will be a challenge to reach them. That's all I wanted to say. I hope we can seize this opportunity of giving a better future to all disenfranchised children, whether Syrian or, of course, whether Lebanese or Syrian. Thank you very much. That's all.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to mention something that if anyone needs translation, there is translation facilities. You can just grab the headset. And I think now we will have a presentation from the ProFuturo group.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming here today. I think it's a very important meeting. Yes. And I want to thank the American University in Beirut for hosting us to this event, which I think we will all enjoy. Let me briefly explain to you that I was CEO of a company called Telefonica for 16 years. Telefonica is in every country in Latin America. And about 8 or 10 years ago, we found that boys living in the middle of the Andes, you know, the Andes are very high and the communications are very bad and there are no schools, had no education. So we decided to try, you know, at that time was with computers, through connectivity, to establish schools in the middle of the Andes, okay, or in the Amazonian. And it worked very well. So that was 10 years ago. It worked very well, and we gave all these kids, we had to train the teachers, because normally, you know, they were not, well, normally no, totally they were not digital at all. So they can use computers too, and the kids in the schools could learn anything. And it worked very well. So we started 10 years ago, and about in 2015, yeah, in 2015, my wife and I, my wife who died 2 years ago, we went to have lunch with the Pope Francisco, you know. And in the second course, I asked him, what is your main worry? And he said to us, my main worry is all the kids that are in the world and don't have any education and will never come out of poverty. And I said, you know, that 8 years ago was impossible, but now it's very easy. Because you give a tablet to any kid anywhere in the world, and he will learn mathematics, physics, or English, anything. So he said, oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I will make the numbers and I come back. And I came back 2 months later. That was in June 2015. And I said, more or less, there is 50 million kids in the world that don't have any education at all. And there is 270 million kids that have an education which is not very good. But we can provide them with a tablet, and the challenge is to teach the professors, because the professors are not digital. But we had an experience in Latin America. We have trained 100,000 teachers, and now they are digital. And everybody is very happy. The kids are very happy, and the teachers are very happy, and the parents are very happy. So we said, oh, it will be good if we do that for the whole world. Sorry to say that. So we created ProFuturo. Okay, in ProFuturo, the aim is to give an education, a digital education, to all the kids in the world that don't have any education, and in a way to improve the education of those 270 million kids in the world that have a very poor education. And you will see in the slide that I'm going to present now that is very impressive. It's very impressive because you can see that from 10,000 years before Christ to 1850, the global and social development of the humanity was zero, practically zero. Why? Because there was not any development. With the Industrial Revolution in the middle of around 1850, started a very strong social development, which the Industrial Revolution goes till around 1995. And you can see that the global social and economic development of humanity was much more in 140 years than in 12,000 years before. And now, starting around 1995, has started the digital revolution. The digital revolution is a change, is a new era. Has nothing to do with the previous era. And it's going to be fantastic. Our calculations are that in the next 30 years, 30 years, humanity will have a development 4 times at least higher than the total industrial revolution. But for that, we need to become all digital. Everything is going to be digital, and this is an opportunity we cannot miss. It is a fact that this is new. This is new because starting around 95, really started around 2005. So it's new for many people, including the governments, the leaders, and the society. And one thing which is very depressing is that we are in the beginning of the best era of humanity, and people are depressed. I don't understand why. Yes, they are depressed because they don't see that the future is going to be fantastic. And it's going to be fantastic because they don't tell them the future is going to be incredible. And as you can see, these are rough numbers. As you can see, well, it is estimated that in the last 2 decades, around 1/5 of the growth of the global national income has grown because of digital means. But one thing which is true is that when you hear talk the economists are outdated. They never talk about consumer needs. They never talk about investment needs. So the numbers in the GNP of the whole world do not reflect the growth that has been established by digital world. Let me tell you an example. You all know that there is a lot of digital consumption. People take the phone, the smartphone, the tablet, they make consumption. These statistics are not reflected anywhere. They still go, but we spend in food, or in furniture, or in houses. Why? Because they're outdated, We had a meeting in London, and there was an economist from the World Economic yeah, the World Economic Bank. And I said to him, sorry to say that, I said to him, your numbers are outdated because they don't reflect. If this happens with the World Economic Bank, when you look around, there's a problem. It is estimated that 10% growth in digitalization of a country will mean a 40% growth in income per capita. 40% growth in income per capita. So every country needs to be digitalized. And there is one thing which the European Union and the United States has calculated, is that, and this is very, very, very important, that all the kids in the world that go to primary school will work 65%, around between 60 and 70% will work in professions that now do not exist and that have one thing in common, which is digital skills. So we have to prepare all these kids for that. I'll give you an example. Now we are in 2017. It is estimated that the European Union will need in the next 2 years and a half around 40 million kids preparing digital skills. And sorry to say that, the education system in Western Europe is not providing that. So there is a tremendous gap. Our estimation that's more rough, is that from here to 2020, which is around the corner, the whole world will need more than 350 million kids with digital education, and the secondary and the education system is not providing that, but it needs to provide that because it's a great demand. So that is why we decided to create ProFuturo. ProFuturo basically is, I would say what is the aim, is to include all the kids in the world that don't have any education at all, but to make them possible to be prepared for this digital world. For the first time in the history of humanity, a kid from Malawi with digital education will have the same education that a boy from Berlin. And this is fantastic, and we have to do it. And now I will pass the word to Sofia, who is the general manager, managing director of ProFuturo.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much again for this fantastic setting, and thanks very much, Mr. Setrakian, for organizing all this, and Ms. Junblad for the great combination of different actors that hopefully will help us to envision how, if that is the case, we can help to work along with you and deal with the challenges that you are facing, and beyond those challenges that Ms. Junblad was announcing, which I think is for all of us the great one. So before starting, because the idea is that I show you what it is exactly about, what we're trying to implement, but I guess it would be useful for all of us to share what our understanding is of the challenge in a worldwide basis. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so when we talk about child poverty and education, you see big figures behind that. It's not only about the amount of million of kids which are out of primary school, it's also about the dropout rates, which are pretty scary, 23% on average, and that's high. That's a worldwide average. In some countries and in some regions, it's even higher. Do not attend to class. They fail to continue going to class. So that's one of the issues we do want to tackle through digital education. It's also about the quality of the training of those teachers. Do they comply with the standards? not that much. I mean, the average worldwide is like 85, 87%. And again, this is worldwide. I've seen some regions where they barely reach 50% of the teachers. So if you want to quantify how big the class should be for one teacher who's really prepared to deal with them, then maybe you would have to double the number of students in class. So we have crowded classes, maybe teachers not that well prepared, and the worst is that even if we had that, in many cases, and I'm talking about the UNESCO figures, 130-something million kids, after spending 4 years in school, do not read and do not add, do not subtract. So what sort of quality education are they receiving if we are unable to provide them with the basic knowledge after 4 years? So even if from millennial goals or development goals, sustainable goals, we are somehow optimistic because we've made great progress worldwide, there's still a way to go with regards to education, and and from our vision, especially important it is to start partnering the right way from the public and the private and the third sector. And that's part of the discussion we would like to open here. How can we best partner to add what we can do the best? Because education is actually the right solution. I think Mr. Alierta was pointing out some interesting figures, but I mean, can you imagine if more than 10% of the poor people would get out of that situation just because they received education? And how about educating the women and how that impacts mortality? And there are figures already that if we are thinking of growth, economic growth, then invest in education and you see what's the direct impact on the growth of a country. So from a political point of view and from the political agenda, it also makes sense, not only from a humanitarian point of view, which is something that was introduced at the beginning by Mr. Alierta. So what's our mission at the end of the day from ProFuturo? We just want to provide equal opportunities through digital education because we believe that that's a key lever to offer this quality transformation or transformative education. What do we mean by that? That we are not just thinking about technology. We all have the experience of giving out tablets and technology and hardware and some digital content, and it made no difference. Because this is not just and only about technology. This is about transforming the way we educate just by using the means of digital technology. And this is something that if we deviated from that target, we wouldn't be doing our job and we wouldn't be getting
Sorry,
the
Sofia,
outcome.
one minute. This is not a project. This is a reality. We have already 4 million kids. We have 3.5 million in Latin America, and we have half 500,000 kids in Africa. So it works, because you know, when you have 4 million kids, it works, okay, and it works very well. So this is not I'm thinking, no, this is a reality, okay.
Thank you. So, trying to delve into the key elements of our approach, I would say questions that you may have. What are our geographic scope? Well, actually, any place in the world where this is suitable and needed. And that means that we've started by Latin America, as Mr. Alierta was mentioning, because that's our natural origin as Fundación Telefónica and Bancaria La Caixa. But also we are starting to work, and we've already, in 2016, Sub-Saharan Africa, we're already actually in Angola, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Madagascar. And we are tackling up to 14 new countries between the new and the existing in both Africa and Asia, like we just came from Philippines, just to give you an example. And also Asia.
Hello, sorry. We are working with the Ministry of Education of Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Brazil, Venezuela, Spain, UK, about digital education, okay? But not...
And hopefully we'll work with you in Lebanon.
You can come with us. Let me tell you one thing. Oh, sorry to say one thing. You know, when we created Telefónica Digital Education, that was 10 years ago, now we have 600 persons, many women and some men, that are very expert in digital education, and we are the second group in the world with more people in digital education because we started in Latin America and we saw the need, okay?
Okay, so we started by primary students. That doesn't mean that that's the only focus or scope that we will eventually be aiming. It's just that we started by primary from 4 to 12. In some countries it means 14 years. And it is across the board, as we were mentioning before, when Mr. Alerta mentioned the interest of the Pope and that inspiration about getting this everywhere, no matter what conviction or culture. With regards to the methodology, very important for us, it was to realize that we need to personalize the education and guide that education through the teacher. The teacher is still a key element in the whole model. We are not saying that just through technology you can get rid of. It's still very important. The thing is that we need them to uptake technology and these new methodologies that involve the students way more than the linear and traditional way of teaching, which is based on memorizing and repeating and letting the teacher tell the story. About the competences, you will see more in detail in a minute, but we try to be universal. So what are the key competencies needed for the 21st century? And that has to do with linguistics. You're going to see that we have developed this in 4 languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. And we're starting to work out the Arabic. This is not just translating into different languages, this is customizing and making sure that we understand the context to which these contents are going to be delivered. And the second block has to do with STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I mean, from a primary school point of view, this is just about maths and science and programming, which is something that we do want to get into the use for the kids at the very early stages. Why should we wait until they are 10 or 11?
Let me tell you one thing. Sorry to interrupt you. 1st of June of 15. I had a dinner. When I went to a dinner, and the dinner was in Berlin, in the Mrs. Merkel office, and the dinner was Mrs. Merkel, President Hollande, la République Française, Mr. Juncker, and who is the President of the European Union, and 12 CEOs from companies. And the reason of the meeting was to work on the digital agenda of Europe, okay? And at one point in time, yes, I said, you know, if we teach kids programming, robotics, you know, they can work from their own place. And the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world, I'm not going to say the name, but one of the biggest companies said, this is not possible. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. You know that from small villages in the middle of the Amazon Peruvian, there are kids working in programs for your company, and they make a good living in the middle of the Amazons. And yes, when you go back to your head office, ask if, and that's a fact, that, and these kids in the middle of nowhere, they are programming and they get a good living, and they make a good living, and they don't need to move from their place. So this is fantastic, because before everybody had to immigrate to make a living. Now they don't need to immigrate. But they have to need digital skills, okay? And the kids, it takes 3 weeks for a kid to learn how to be digital. 3 weeks, because at the end, all the new generations are digital. Not me, which I'm analogic, but all the kids are. So this is a fantastic opportunity. And I have to say that Mrs. Merkel, Juncker, and President of the République Française, they were impressed. But this is a fact. Sorry.
So those are the STEMs and the programming skills that we want to introduced from the very beginning of education. And there's a third block you're going to see afterwards more in detail, and that has to do with what we call the skills for life. I think that you call them here transferable skills or 21st century competences. Now, these are non-academic, but still very necessary for those kids who are going through a very difficult and vulnerable situation. That has to do, and those are universal values. We are talking actually about critical thinking, which is needed for those kids. We are talking about teaching them how to deal with a conflict and many other situations. That has to do with healthy habits, with citizenship, or with ways to think and acting. This is what we call the skills for life competences, which is the third block that we are trying to promote as we think they're needed too. And the last part, and that was intentionally not to put focus on technology, because sometimes it's like the attraction, but it's not actually the essence. It's just a mean. We need to be able to use it the right way. Has to do with technology. And technology is not only hardware, it's software. It has to do with digital contents, but very, very important. And going back to my previous thought about the teachers, we have to teach those teachers. We have to introduce this in the schools, so the head of schools need to embrace technology. Otherwise, this is not going to work. In our experience, if the head of the school, if the principal is not really interested, if they don't see the value, nothing's going to happen. And everything is going to be stuck in the wardrobe, and we won't see it being used. So our ambition, and I think that it's already been mentioned, we don't start from scratch. Fundación Telefónica, which is one of the two partners behind this initiative, we have 10 years of education experience in Latin America, and that adds to more than 4 million kids. We intend to reach by 2020 10 million kids, and if we reach there, hopefully by 2030 we would have reached those 50 million kids, which are, for us, is a very critical figure. And as I was saying, this was originally inspired by Pope Francis, but again,
the Pope told me, Alerta, this is to make the kids have a future. And sorry to say that, but I don't want you to make Christians, okay? If they are Muslims, Muslims. If they are Buddhists, Buddhists. If they are Zoroastrians, Zoroastrians. If they don't believe in anything, anything. But they need to have a future, okay? So this is, okay? He said, yes, sir. Well, that's the way it's working. You will work a lot. You will work like that, okay?
And as a matter of fact, you may want to comment on our last visit to Nigeria.
Visit to Nigeria. Okay, we had a visit in Nigeria, and we had a meeting there, and it was very, that was 2 weeks ago in Nigeria. And you know, Nigeria has 180 million inhabitants. And it was a meeting organized by the Emir of Kano. Okay, Kano is in the northern part of Nigeria. And the Cardinal. Basically, but the one who organized the meeting really was the Emir of Kano, and the Cardinal also, but less. And he brought the governors of northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is the poorest part of Nigeria, and they are all Muslims, okay? And we had a meeting. It was a fantastic meeting. And I have to say, well, the Emir of Kano is very, very smart. And give you an anecdote. One of the people that came to the meeting was the governor of Borno. I didn't know what Borno was before I went to Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria. But it's where Boko Haram is. You know, you heard about Boko Haram, yeah? And the governor of Borno, where Boko Haram is there, you heard about Boko Haram, said, this is very important, because if we teach the kids and the girls and the boys in the middle of nowhere in the state robotics, and they have an expectancy of making a good living in a new world, they will not become radical. So I need to teach all those kids. And the Emir of Kano said, look, there are many places in northern Nigeria which a boy or a girl to go to the school, it takes 2 hours or 3 hours walking, okay? But every town, every place has a mosque, okay? So we are going to use the mosque to give digital education. And I said, well, that's fantastic, because through the mosque, we can reach everybody to give them a digital education in robotics. And you know, if you have seen a kid in the middle of nowhere that knows robotics and how happy he is, you know, and how he is motivated and he thinks I'm going to have a great future, only if you see one, you are happy for the rest of your life. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. And I'm going to tell you one anecdote. ¿Puedo, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, in Spain we had a king. Now we have another king, no? And the former king, you know, is called Juan Carlos, okay? And I said to him one day, hey, you sir, you know, to be king is good, but there is some disadvantages. I said, because look, I go to a village in the middle of the Amazonas in Peru, I go to the school, and I see the kids very, very happy. But if you go to the same school, it will go the police, the governor, the gendarmerie, and when you reach the school, the poor kids are going to be, say, who is coming? So you are unlucky that being a king, you cannot go to see a kid in the middle of nowhere. Oh, I say, yes, that's true. Disadvantage of being king. It has some advantages, but it has some disadvantages, okay? And then one thing which is very important. The evolution of mankind is through two factors, education and innovation, okay? Innovation is the key. If you look from 1850 to now, there have been a lot of innovations that were not existing. If you look the last 50 years, there have been a lot of innovations that for us is very normal, and for my parents, well, very unusual. And what is going to happen in the future, you know? Things that we consider are all of us very normal, or your parents, oh, they never thought it was going to be like that. Innovation is done through digital skills. That is very, very, very clear. And I will tell you one, ¿la digo ya o no? ¿Eh? Okay. You know, ¿dónde estás tú? I'm on the board of the Caixa Foundation, Telefónica Foundation. Yeah. And 3 years ago, came some doctors from a very good hospital, one of the best hospitals in Spain. Said, we need 6 million euros. For what? To cure 2 cancers. Oh, and with 6 million euros, you can discover, you can cure 2 cancers? Yes. You know how many diseases are in the world that we don't know why they are produced? 5,000. What happened with digital skills? I'm going to tell you. You know what they did, these people? They are experts in genome analytics. So they look into the genome of millions of people, and they look at the genome of those people that have that cancer. And what they found, they have that these people that have that cancer have 35 genomes out of million genomes that are different. So they concentrate on the 35 genomes, they found a solution, and they cure the cancer. That is 4 million euros per disease. If there is 5,000 diseases we don't know, with 4 million, 5 million, is 3 billion euros. 3 billion euros. You know how much cost a tank? The new tanks? A new tank cost 450 million euros. I'm going to be very demagogic, but with 10 tanks, we don't need 10 tanks for anything, we can cure all diseases in humanity. And with around 20 tanks, we can teach every kid in the world digital skills. Why don't we do it? We have to do it, okay? And will we do it? Yes, okay. Do you know how much the world spends every day on military equipment? $3 billion a day. With 3 days of non-military equipment, we could teach every kid in the world digital skills. And with 6 days, all the diseases. So this is a fantastic world, but people don't realize it. Why? Because, you know, it's been 5 years since this started. I realized that you could cure disease with 4 billion euros 2 years ago. Fantastic. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you my life. I went to see the Minister of Health. He said, how much money you spend in researching diseases? Very little. Why don't you do it? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. So, I think that if we should get into the explanation of what this is about, our value proposal. And I mean, you've seen just behind us that we opened one of the cases that you're going to see. And afterwards, maybe in a break, you can play around with the tablet and see what sort of activities and how that works. But we thought that maybe for the sake of sharing with you a general idea of what this is about, we've prepared a video that is going to show you 4 key aspects. The hardware, the software, which is the second block, learning platform and content. Very important for us, the training process, and I would like to just spend 1 minute after, because that is about how we should operate if that works out, because we need you to help us shape our own process and make sure that it fits within your operations. And in the last block has to do with monitoring and reporting. Just let me tell you one thing. Behind 10 million kids' educational activity, there's a great deal of useful data. We call that big data. And in just one sentence, what can I do with the big data? Basically, I could go to one place that I haven't started providing them with education. I could anticipate how that's going to work, and I can modify or adjust my value proposal to make sure that this is going to happen the right way. This is what big data is about. And we have developed that practice in Telefónica, and we are applying that technology and that expertise with our own database. So hopefully when we have enough data, you would be all benefited by this forecasting and this anticipated proposal of how the best it works.
An anecdote. We know a boy in the middle of nowhere, in Angola or in Colombia, in the middle of the forest, how he does every day, if he's going good or if he's doing bad. I have in my house nephews,
Grandsons.
Yeah, they are not mine. They are from my sister, my family. Who go to a school? They are 6 years, and nobody knows how he's doing the school. And he goes to a very good school in Madrid, but they don't know. And we know what a kid in the middle of nowhere in Colombia is doing every day, if he's going good in mathematics or not. Because you can have personalized education. Because with big data, which sounds, you can have personalized education. You know if he's doing good in mathematics, or is he good in English, or is he good or not. The kids that go to normal schools, well, you know, you don't have any idea if they are doing good or not. You are saying, how was the school today? Ah, very good, very good. That's the end.
Vale. Let me play this, if it works, and I hope. No? No aparece.
No, no se ve. ¿Y si cierras el PowerPoint?
Sí, voy a hacer eso. Sorry. ¿Is that? ¿Ahora ya?
Yo creo que sí.
Pero... Sí se ve, ¿qué se ve?
Se ve lo mismo que se ve, que ves tú. O sea,
Ah.
dale.
¿Ahora se ve?
ProFuturo's digital classroom is the result of the integration of technology into teaching learning processes. Its aim is to promote a pedagogical transformation capable of facilitating the development of skills and abilities in children who do not have access to quality education, providing teachers with tools for the use of innovative teaching methodologies. ProFuturo has designed its own technological solution to meet the needs of the context to which ProFuturo is addressed. All the devices are protected inside a suitcase that isolates them from any external factor even in extreme conditions. It brings technology where learning takes place without the need for specific spaces. No need for an internet connection, which allows access to all types of schools, thanks to a server in which all the software components are installed, generating a local network which connects teachers and students, so content can be downloaded easily. It also has electric autonomy, thanks to the incorporation of integrated batteries, with a life which is long enough to last a school day, which facilitates access to those schools which do not have electricity. The electrical charging process of all the devices is realized through a single plug, prepared to withstand the changes of tension without damaging the equipment. It adapts to the characteristics of the target destination, with solutions ranging from 12 devices for rural multi-grade schools to 30, 40 or 48 tablets for schools with greater coverage. All of them have a mini projector and screen, which allows users to actively engage in activities. If there is a key component within the digital classroom, that is, without any doubt, WeClass, the educational platform that allows teachers to organize their classes by creating learning sequences according to a theme that fits their syllabus, including different types of resources and activities. It incorporates a resources repository with contents that ProFuturo makes available, allowing teachers to add their own resources and share them with other teachers. It also allows teachers to create contents or activities in a very simple way, thanks to a series of templates such as tests, surveys, or activities in which the students have to develop different tasks. Another advantage of WeClass is that all students' results and progress are recorded so the teacher can know where their skill levels are and personalize the learning through the creation of groups of students with similar skill levels. This also allows the teacher to assign specific contents for each of them. ProFuturo's content is focused on the development of basic competencies, values and skills for life, promoting an integral training. They are designed so that the student has an active role, applying the principle of learning by doing, where the goal is that through their involvement, motivation towards learning is promoted. ProFuturo's digital classroom is an innovative tool that contributes to equal opportunities through quality education, with the help of a great ally, technology. ProFuturo, committed to education.
Okay. So I hope this helped you to get an idea of what it is about from a visual point of view. And I'm going to hand it out to my colleague from La Caixa. He's involved in ProFuturo, as I am, and he's going to walk us through much quicker the detailed components of the solution, if I am able to show
04.
this. A ver, aquí.
Thank you. Thank you, Sofia. Just 2 more minutes to stress something that it was said about this is not a project about just technology, it's about technology and the combination with the teaching and the learning processes. This is for us really important because we have to take all the advantage of the technology and we have to learn about all the advances in the teaching experiences is what is about this program. And for that reason, if you go ahead, yeah, we try with this solution to put skills, new skills, values and ability in order to have a complete education. We don't aim to replace the educational syllabus. These materials, this content is thought to be a complement to the curriculum in all schools. This is the idea, and it's based in these different criteria. Has to be universal, has to be a quality material, has to be an international vision, has to be diversity friendly, because we know that we have different capacities in different places and in different children, and has to allow them also to develop technology capacities. The content has been designed in a very general basis, but we can see here some of these characteristics that has been highlighted. The content has to be universal, but is possible to be adapted to every single situation. The basis is the interactivity between the student and the system, between the teacher and the system, and between the student and the teacher, and develops skills, values for life, as also has said. And always we try to use the principles of learning by doing. That is quite more useful and powerful than other learning processes. So for that, the motivation of the kids is really important. And the tablet is very useful in order to increase the motivation to learn. And we have fixed, we have noticed that it's real when one of these children, as you've seen in the video, has a tablet in their hands. This visual content, the possibility to use as a game, by learning by doing, and a constant interactivity, makes that the motivation is going high. For that reason, we know that all this part of the content, learning and teaching content, for us is like the soul of this project. We know that the first thing that we saw maybe is the machinery, is the tablets or the computers, but we know that we have to take a lot of care about content. We have developed all the units that we need for the basic learning, but we are working to finish in the coming months all the material on the medium and the advanced content, and also we plan to have an extra level for the coming times. All this content is structured in these two big skills family. It's about linguistic skills, it's about the STEM, mathematics, science, or digital skills, and it's about values and skills for life. That is really, really important also in this program. Now we have developed a total of 64 units. That's is used approximately for 720 hours of learning in different languages, as was also said: Portuguese, Spanish, French, and English. 60 units, 36 units for STEM, 16 units for linguistic, and 12 units for values.
We will have it in Arabic in about 2 months.
Sorry?
Que lo tendrás en árabe en 2 meses.
Yeah.
We will have it in Arabic in about 2 months.
Of course. This is really, really true. And just what is the content about is about you have materials for the teachers, learning materials, units for assessment, and so on. And all this material has been certified externally. UNESCO is allowing us to use also this certification. Other universities are helping us, and we has set up a committee of experts that they are continually monitoring the pedagogical assessment of the project. And also we try to continue comparing all the material that we have with the main curricula standards in the world. And you can see here in the screen one of the examples. Just was.
Thank you. Just to finish, and before we start the debate, the university is going to kindly help us to convey. I would like, and I think it would be useful to explain a little bit what it is about our thinking about how we should be implementing in terms of big processes, and very specifically what it has to do with training, support, and assistance, so that we can discuss about the feasibility. Now, the way we've worked so far in many, many places has been, first of all, of course, it's an interest of the community to see whether this could work or not. Now, what we call that is like the pre-prospection sort of phase. We gather information from you. You actually, I think you have a template within the papers we've distributed. You can see the type of information we're gathering just for the sake of finding out whether it would be feasible, because you know that we don't need connectivity, but it's only for the class. Actually, in order to share all that activity and in order to download enhanced versions of the software and the contents, we would eventually be connected to the cloud. That doesn't mean that we need to be online all the way through, but just from time to time. So there are some in the extreme constraints that we need to deal with. And that's the reason why we gather information to make sure that the level of the training of the teachers is enough. And if it's not, maybe we should enlarge the number of hours that we need to train them, and maybe also the contents. We've already started working out with our colleagues from the GRS, and we realized that our model, our training model, was maybe not enough. So we are complementing with what you have in place in order to make the best out of it, okay? So once that we gather the information, we plan with you a visit. It's like a due diligence, operational one, just to make sure that we understand the information and that we are able to size how many tablets and how many hours do we need to train your teachers and what sort of support is going to be needed. That's the prospection phase, okay? During that, we talk about also the conditions because there's an agreement between both. And once that we are back, we plan to the implementation. Normally, the implementation has to do with delivering technology along with delivering training for the teachers so that they get the cases and they touch them and they can parameterize anything they need, including the upload of the kits, and they can start up and go and running. That's the idea. That's a rough description of what the process entails. Now, with regards to that training that I went through very, very quickly, just a few words. There are three key elements. The head of schools, I said. The coordinators. Coordinators are those which are part of our project and our finance, which are helping us on the field to make sure that everything is working correctly. And they are helping the teachers to make a good use of all these contents and methodologies, okay? So those are the coordinations. And then we have the head of schools, whom I said that we need to make sure that they're really, really interested. And of course, the teachers. We need to train them to make sure that once they take the technology, they know how to use it. Okay, so it takes different lengths of time, and it takes different ways of approaching. In Latin America, we have Foundation Telefonica, so it's completely different because we have our colleagues there organizing everything. But in a country like this, where we don't have any bases, we need to partner with you and make sure that we set up the right local support through those coordinators, right, to follow up. Okay, so I won't get into the details. You have all the information in the sheets, so you will see what are the goals that we are aiming with the coordinators. Those are the soul of the project. Let me put it this way. They need to learn, and we spend more time with them because they're going to be helping the teachers. Okay, so there's a special training for them. Then the head teachers and the teachers will receive also a different length, of course, of education, of training, because with the head teacher, you only need to make sure that he has bought in the project, okay? And then you can see that there is a clear set of responsibilities of our coordinators. Those we can discuss and we can make sure that they are adjusted, but this is a sample of how this is working actually in the countries that I've mentioned, okay? Now, this doesn't end the day we train the teachers and we leave the computers and the contents and everything. We have remote support. And actually, the link between on the field operations and our remote support are the coordinators, okay? So you can also see how it works, but there would be like proactive conversations from our call center to make sure that for some reason something is not working, because otherwise we would have seen it in the database, or it could be reactive. The coordinators may call us because they have some sort of incidents, and either we can check it out through email or maybe we need to have a conversation. And by the way, talking by one of the colleagues, Ms. Junblad introduced us to, he's a technician, an expert in programming who is being held by the UNHR funds, and we realized that he is developing an app which would be really, really useful for the coordinators to also add on this process of remote control. And as I said, the proactive would entail also providing them with newsletters, what's going on in different parts of the world, and bi-weekly reports that will be asked in order for us to make sure that everything is working out. It's not that we are surveying anything, it's just that we need to know, in order to enhance what we are offering, what's going on. So, thank you very much. If I have explained the process, and I head it on to Mahat so she can help us go through the discussion, which is the most important part of this meeting, actually. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very, interesting and thought-provoking presentation. We have very limited time, and I know you're all very busy, so I'm going to be a little bit too rough about the time management, if you don't mind. So, and we have some very important questions that we want to address. And I know around the table there are people from the public sector, the formal education, and others who are engaged in non-formal education. And I think it's very important to be thinking about the potential of this program within formal and non-formal sector. And I think in Lebanon we have had an experience with technology since the end of the Civil War, to different degrees of success. But I think also Mr. Fadiara can also tell us a lot about their experiences at the Ministry of trying to integrate technology to improve the quality of learning. But I think the question that we will be focusing on for the next half an hour is, what's the prospect, or does this system has a scope for improving access and quality of education in our public and private schools? And please think of the context that you work with and see how this might help you in terms of increasing enrollment, but also retention and the quality of teaching. And I'd really encourage short interventions and comments so we can really get as much feedback from people. And I'll start with Mr. Fadiara.
Thank you, Dr. Shaib. First of all, thanks for the AUB for hosting us today, and definitely for our friends from the team of ProFuturo, and specifically Mr. Cesar Alierta on the exciting project. Thank you, Ms. Junblad, for everything that you're doing for the children in Lebanon. Practically, just a few figures in the beginning. We have, according to UNHCR, and bonjour Mireille, around 500,000 child in the age of education. 200,000 of them are in public schools. We have 40,000 in private schools, and the other 250 part of them are out of school, and few of them are in different non-formal education setups. Well, we're very much aware about the need of definitely giving an education opportunity. That's why for the last month we held a few workshops on the non-formal education to boost the momentum of non-formal education in Lebanon. We have a framework, we have different initiatives, and our target was set 10 days ago by His Excellency the Minister of Education, Mr. Marwan Ahmadi. Up to 100,000 kids will join non-formal education in the 2017. We have around 68,000 child, where we have planned to put them in different initiatives and secured funding, and the rest we are working to ensure funding and the right space and the right initiatives. We opened lately in a second round of expression of interest because the strategy now at the Ministry of Education to work closely with the international and the local NGOs. And we welcome any NGO to register itself on the records of the Ministry of Education and put their program to be able later on to monitor and to count the kids and to facilitate any kind of support from technical education to probably financial support from the UN agency, and I mean both UN agency, UNHCR and UNICEF, that the donor, bringing money from the donors or the international community. On this, we were exposed to different I would say e-learning or digital initiatives. And definitely this is the first time that we see this scale with ProFuturo. 4 million kids were reached until now through the world. We had previously were exposed to different ones, but not reaching as much. We welcome this initiative. We would like to see it working in Lebanon. But as a public servant, we are a little bit conservative in the way how we implement. So practically, what I was proposing to Ms. Jumblat, the following. We should begin with a pilot. We would maybe create a committee or a subcommittee, small one, of experts from if our friends at the UN, and I know that Luciano has the innovation team, and, as well as Mireille. And then from there, create a small team on innovation and see what would be the optimal environment that these boxes would live and be sustainable. I see an initiative like the boxes of ProFuturo would work in formal education, in supporting kids to better education, to use better technology on early ages, supporting kids for their homework or additional supports after their formal education. Definitely with such connectivity, because we saw that that doesn't need high infrastructure, which was until now the major challenge in Lebanon, and where geographically the refugees are concentrating in the Bekaa and Akkar. Our main challenge is still the infrastructure. So let's pilot in a different 2 or 3 non-formal education setup, and in a formal education public school, more than one. We will be ready to do it by tomorrow morning and see the success. I was conservative because I have few questions. First, the maintenance cost later on. The maintenance cost, the resources needed, the profile of the people who would need to make this engine working, not for the first month, but on the long run. The robust profile of this equipment. We saw on the. I know that for you it's basic questions, but we need to put them on the table, or maybe to animate the debate. How they would the kids work with it. What is the best management model of putting it in a classroom? What is the readiness of the teachers? What kind of follow-up? And definitely, where are we now on the curricula? Because we have our curricula, the Lebanese curricula, with Arabic support, with another language, English or French. So it is very important to see. We would love also to try it in our 2 public schools using Spanish as a second foreign language. No, this is for Ricardo. This is for Ricardo. So.
I didn't know we have schools that have.
Yes, we have 2 schools teaching Spanish language as a second. No, it was a parenthesis, it was a joke, but it's reality. So practically, let's see how we can get few boxes and try and do a technical assessment, a educational assessment, and then decide together, hand by hand, how we can scale it up.
Thank you.
For us, the average cost for a boy of the 4 million kids is 150 euros per year. That includes the tablet, which costs 40 euros. The second part, more expensive, is the training of the teacher. The actualization of the curriculum is very, very cheap, very, very cheap, and we can adapt the curriculum to any curriculum. By the way, let me tell you, we have adapted the curriculum to the Peruvian, to the Argentinian, to the Chilean, to the Brazilian, to the Venezuelan, to the Costa Rican, to the Mexican, to the Angolan, to the Malawi, and that is very, very cheap. And there is one thing which is not included in 150 euros, which is to build a school, they pay the teacher, okay? If we had to build a school or pay the teacher, well, that's more expensive, okay? So in places where there is no schools, the municipalities will give us a local, and we'll put the school there, all right? Or if there are no municipalities, we are working with, we're going to start working with the mosque or churches or whatever, we don't care. We want to have a place where the kids go, and then we had to pay the teacher, okay? If the teacher is paid by the municipality, the government, which is much more cheap. So the good thing is that 150 euros per kid per year is including the tablet, is nothing, okay? And this guy with the tablet can learn anything, okay? So the challenge, and then, as you know, the connectivity is not a problem because we can connect anybody from anywhere, even if there is no connection, no light or anything, okay? And the connectivity is very, very cheap, okay? Because what happens? The connectivity goes, if you have seen the 48 tablets in the luggage, the connectivity goes to the Wi-Fi of the teacher, and the teacher makes the Wi-Fi and it goes to the other one, so they have the mathematics and everything. And one thing I forgot to tell you. The first thing we teach the kids is how to learn. Why? Because, when they have a tablet, they can go and look at anything, so they have to learn how to learn with the tablet, because otherwise they go playing with the games and whatever. So, and they learn very fast how to learn with the tablet, because it's a differential. But the kids, they learn how to learn in a few months, okay?
I'm sorry, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fadiera. This is very interesting to see that, it can be incorporated in the non-formal as well as we can try it in the formal sector.
One thing I want to, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, just because I'm very keen on getting as many interventions from a variety of backgrounds, so we can really benefit you with this.
We have the
discussion.
United Nations has a sustainability fund, which for the 20 goals of the United Nations, and we have been nominated global advisors for digital education of that fund. Okay, and we're happy with that. And so we work with the United Nations because we are the global advisor for digital education. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, any comments or interventions on how do you see, what scope do you see for this program or project to be implemented in Lebanon in your different settings and contexts that might help access to quality education?
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very interesting. I just had a question that I think maybe you could, no, it's okay, don't worry, that you could answer based on your experience in other countries. I know in Lebanon they have a very rigorous curriculum, and teachers are often talking about, especially with the refugee students that are coming in with less of a background, how immensely difficult it is to get through that curriculum in terms of timing. So I was wondering how the digitalization will actually not take away from the time that the teachers already need to spend on the very basic curriculum, and how it might be helping their time use.
Thank you, Ken. Can I just make, Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself? And I suggest that we take a round of comments, and then we come back to you. I think this way we can get more questions and more feedback.
My name is Elizabeth Edelman, and I'm a PhD student at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard, and I'm conducting research here.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Emily Walsh. I'm with World Vision Turkey. I'm just here for this, actually. So I actually have a number of questions. But to follow up on what you said, when we're talking about, you had mentioned that we're going to give the teachers training. Does that include training on how to use this technology in a wider lesson? Because you can teach the teachers how to use the technology, but using it in a lesson setting is a little bit different. It's a little bit different training. I was a teacher for about 10 years, so using tablets as part of your lesson plan is very different, so I was hoping to get some information on that. I also wanted information on approximately how many tablets per child there were. I think I had read that there would be about 5 children per tablet, was the information that I was provided, so I don't know about that. Okay, I'll give it.
Thank you. Sorry, we'll get one more question, and then we'll see we'll get the answers from the team. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Luciano Calistini. I'm with UNICEF. Maybe just a comment, a slightly long one, but I'll be as short as I can, and then a question at the end. Just following on from Mr. Yarek's intervention, I think we have an incredible opportunity in Lebanon in an unprecedented way, because given the political will and the capacity of the public system here to absorb out-of-school children, we have now almost a 1-to-1 ratio, for example, of Syrian children and Lebanese side by side in the public system. There is absolutely a need for a non-formal education response, and many of the organizations represented around this room are part of that response. However, in the view of UNICEF, non-formal education is not an end in itself. Humanity has not yet devised an education system that can yet substitute for a formal classroom setting, because it's not just about the learning, it's also about the socialization and the protection that a classroom provides to children. So non-formal education here has been an incredible success in transitioning children who have been out of school often for many years into the public system side by side with their peers, where they walk away with a certificate that is then recognized anywhere in the world that those children happen to go. So I would just make that point first. The second, and I think this follows on from also one of Mr. Yarek's points, that the public education system here has been neglected and underinvested in for decades. I think what we would not want to see is a consolidation or continued investment into something in parallel to a public system, which in the Lebanon context is what the poorest children have always relied on and struggled through. And I think the best approach we could have is if this kind of technology as an augmentation to learning outcomes that the poorest children receive, and they are the ones in the public system, if we can marry somehow this approach to the learning that is being offered through the public sector, and we kill two birds with one stone because we improve learning outcomes and we have an investment that is left behind in the public education system of Lebanon. The third comment I would make, and this is a very UNICEF-y comment, we love open source. I get a sense that this is closed proprietary software that perhaps has ongoing costs associated with it. And I think, again, Mr. Yarek touched on issues around maintenance and updating and who owns it. And that would be very critical for us to understand more of, because for us, local capacity and local ownership and the ability to access in the roots of this kind of system locally in a way that is owned by everybody and can be adapted on the fly without having to ask permission or pay for access is for us is critical. The last thing I would add is actually the question, which is around the financing model that ProFuturo uses. We would be interested to understand if this is something that requires donor contributions to purchase, and if there are continuing associated costs with that, and in other countries how that's worked. The education response here has significant support from the international community for the last 3-4 years under a national program referred to as RACE, which stands for Reaching All Children with Education, whether they are Lebanese or Syrian or Palestinian for that matter. And it would be good to understand how this can be sustained, where sustainability is the holy grail of a response which is going to go for some years to come. Nobody can say how many years, but certainly keeping this kind of initiative as cost-effective and sustainable as possible would be the ideal. Thank you.
The last question, okay? Is open source is free. And if anybody is in favor of open source, it's me. And so one of the biggest problems in the world is the closing operating system of Android and iOS, all right? But this is going to change. So it's open source, any collaboration is free, and is free of charge. And anything that is improved, the better. The second thing, which is very important, and I'm going to give you an example, I'm going to take Spain, okay? In Spain, to be a teacher, you need to go through a school, and they give you a title of teacher. You know, the curriculum of the teachers in Spain is from 82. So the teachers are learning what something that is not good anymore, because you know what you needed in 82 is not what you need in 17. So they have to change the program. So the teachers had to be trained to be digital, okay? The second thing. If the teachers are going trained to be digital, public schools will be better than private schools, okay? But non-formal, what is non-formal education? Non-formal education is because you don't have a title. Our aspiration is that the UNESCO will say that anybody that has completed from 4 years or 5 years to 16 has a title, a certificate. No matter where he learns that. So he can go to work if he learns that in, I don't know, in Peru, can work in Germany, okay? And that is not complicated. And we are working with UNESCO, so the curriculum will be certified by UNESCO. Because, you know, if you have a title certified by Peru and you want to work in Mexico, people say, well, your program is not good, okay? So that's easy. What we have to do to have the approval of UNESCO, that it goes through all the curriculums, say, okay, I agree, this is good mathematics, this is good linguistics, this is good. And the financing problem is my problem, okay? Which is not a problem, okay? And we don't go, I mean, if anybody wants to give us money, we are happy, eh? But we don't go around asking money, okay? And I will say something. In reality, I'm in charge of the financing, okay? I'm not worried at all. I'll see very well, okay? It's very easy to raise the money for a thing like this, okay? Because when you see the global will and how much money we need to do that, it's nothing, okay? Let me give you an example. You look at the budget of European Union, this is nothing compared to what they spend in subsidizing potatoes, okay? So that's not a problem. I'm not worried about money. We don't. Let me be very frank. We need teachers. We have the tablets, we have the curriculum, we have everything, but we need the teachers, okay? Which is the key, okay? And the kids, they will learn very, very fast. Sorry about the PhD in Harvard, I didn't remember your question.
I was asking, because I know, and having worked in Africa as well, that the issue with time is always an issue for teachers. So I was wondering how does time get taken into account when they have
How much?
Time.
How time?
I will answer.
The issue is about the national curriculum. Yeah, sorry if I...
No,
It's the voice, I think. There's no one.
no, because the other people in here don't speak
Hey,
Spanish.
can I reply, please? Thank you for describing our rigorous curriculum. Well, children are doing well. Just to give you an idea, on the brevet, which is our grade 9 national exams, the success rate is on average around 76% on the first round. Second round, they will get up to 80 something, even more. On the refugees, specifically declared refugees who are following, we have an average of 57%. So just for so the gap is not much. Well, where we see the digital dimension, this is one. Where we see the digital dimension go up with the, and that's why we're open to a sustainable idea. And if this initiative is sustainable, we welcome it. And we would like to see it, this is technology, we would like to see it scaled up with time. We don't see it in the public sector, in the formal education replacing the course. It will come to ensure the success of the kids. This is what my understanding. It will come to enhance their capacity in science, technology, and mathematics. It will come to increase their potentials in languages. It will come to open them ideas on life skills and issues of daily life. This is what we were listening with high interest to Sophia. So this is where we see it. Technology in this case, and I never saw it somewhere in the world until now, unless maybe you have an incubator at university and you have some solid evidence. It will support, it will never replace formal education. As well, non-formal education is a different setup where we see it. It will go parallel with, and here I fully agree, you need a teacher when it comes to non-formal education, how to animate, I would say, this education space.
Sorry, can...
I'll tell you one thing. You know there was a war in Colombia, all right? And thanks God, the war is finished, okay? So, I went to see the president of Colombia, and I said, look, all the kids in the area in which there was the war, they don't know anything. The only thing they know is to pam, okay? So we have to teach them a job. How we are going to teach them a job? Through digital education. And we are going to do it because you have the school teachers, and we will give a tablet to each kid so they will learn an education. And I said to the president of Colombia, you know which is the target we have for 2017, 2018? 500,000 kids to learn a job. And we are doing it. And it's very expensive. No. And those 500,000 kids who live in places that were all the time in war, now they go to school and they learn everything, and they can have a future, okay? So it's possible, 500,000 kids in Colombia. Is it expensive? No.
Thank you. Can I actually ask a question? I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm very curious to follow up on a point you made, Mr. Yara, which is non-formal education. Do you see any potential for this program also to complement the accelerated learning program, which the ministry has been working on?
We definitely, I mean, one of the initiatives, ALP, which is accelerated learning, could be supported. And here again, we go to some administrative dimensions or managerial dimensions where, I mean, now I think the cost of around an accelerated learning program goes up to 250, if I'm not mistaken. How we would put another initial investment of 150 euros on this, and what is the availability of funding, how to be optimal in talking to the international community, to donors about getting this.
150 euros will put it, okay?
So let's begin tomorrow. So let's begin tomorrow. Let's begin tomorrow. I think there is no No, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's the how, it's not the why.
Yeah.
It is the how to implement. And it's not a challenges, it's how we would optimize the implementation, not why should we introduce a digital dimension.
Sure. I think the key question here is, first, whether this country, in Lebanon, it is workable.
That's why
Okay. Let's forget the administrative issues.
Let's do it tomorrow. Let's pilot.
No, we cannot do it tomorrow because we have to hear whether it's being done. Second, how to adapt it to the curriculum, because there is an adaptation, because they mentioned in Arabic. In Arabic, it's not going to be just a translation from what the Spanish is. No, it's an adaptation to the needs of the country, which will come to a certain degree to complement what is the official curriculum too. I mean, we are not going to bring a Spanish curriculum to Lebanese kids. And third, we mentioned 500,000 kids, 240,000, 200,000 in public sector, 40,000 in private sector, 250,000 we don't know what is their destiny, which represents 50% of the kids who are either getting some kind of education or they're not getting any education. So I think this forum is very important for us to get the feedback as to what kind of welcoming, or not even welcoming. I'm sure the idea, everybody will welcome. As you said, let's start tomorrow. But the question is, what are the needs and how to really go in the field? And that's where we need the NGO's reaction to us.
I think we're ready probably to move to the next question, which is what would it take to actually make it operate on the ground? And I think if we can get feedback, and I'm very keen also to hear from NGOs as well who are working on the ground, because I know that you are implementing non-formal programs as well as other, and we have two interventions from UNHCR, UNICEF, and UNESCO, and then also. So we'll start from here and then we'll go to.
Thank you very much. I'm Mireille Girard from UNHCR. Thank you for the very interesting description, and I would like to echo what Director General Fadi Yarak and my colleague from UNICEF mentioned. I think perhaps the approach to answer your question, the pilot idea that Fadi was mentioning, is the way to test it in a non-formal context, in a formal context, and then to see perhaps there where it can be the most fairly possibly spread. Or maybe the approach is to create a pool of kids knowledgeable about having digital technology knowledge, or on the contrary, spreading it thin to the maximum possible. So that will have to be a strategy depending on the capacity and the operationalization, the possibility of operationalization throughout the country. And only a testing can show us that. So that's one point. The second one I wanted to say, it's more a question in terms of the operationalization. You mentioned the adaptation to a curriculum here in the region. And I wanted to check, because I know you've mentioned diversity. What is the inbuilt cultural sensitivity in the system, in the icons, in the drawings, etc., so that these are things that are tested in any given population? particularly here, and I wanted to ask if you have rolled this out in a refugee context before, in a war-affected population before, because you have a lot of kids here that are affected by trauma to a severe or mild extent, but everyone is. So how do we, that has consequences on the learning capability, on the capacity to focus, etc. And the teachers here in Lebanon are very aware of that, and the ministry is training the teachers in this regard. So you know, can we work on that to make sure this program is actually receivable by and sensitive to their particular situation? Thank you.
As I was telling you, in Colombia, it works very well. And I'm going to tell you one experience we had in Colombia, which is fantastic. You know, now there's peace, and so to the same school goes the son of a guerrillero and the doctor of somebody that was killed by guerrilleros, you know, and they sit in the same class, and the level of confrontation is 95%. So we have been working for the last 2 years in one thing which we call Class for Peace. You know, we developed a psychological methodology that after 1 year, the girl whose father was killed by a guerrillero and the son of the guerrillero are friends. They go together, they play, and finish. And it works. And it's fantastic. When I saw it, I could not believe it, you know, because 1 year before, they could not talk because my father was killed by this guy, and it works. And we have that experience. We have in Colombia, we have 500 schools, especially when they live together, all these kids that, you know, they were killing each other, their parents, that, anyway, no, they are very good. They get along very well, they're happy, they play together, and they do, which is fantastic. So it is possible, okay? So
Thank you.
In the refugee camps, it's very easy. Sorry to say that, because you want to give them a training and say, hey, you have a future. And the kids will be very happy to know that they have a future. And, you know, everything is...
Thank you. We have Maysoon, and then I can't see Muhammad, I think. Okay.
Good morning. Thanks, Maha, and congratulations for ProFuturo for this wonderful initiative you presented, which, of course, is one of the innovative solutions to reach the unreached children in Lebanon and elsewhere. And it's obvious from what you presented that it really contributes to support the learner, the teacher, and the system itself. Mr. Alierta and Ms. Sofia mentioned that the curriculum is being developed with UNESCO. I'm sure with the global office, with the headquarters. I'm here from UNESCO, the regional office. Personally, I'm not involved or engaged in this, and I'm not really aware about it, actually. So I will do my homework and ask more my colleagues about it. But even though the curriculum will be, of course, developed at a global level, here at the regional office, we will stress on the importance of aligning the curriculum and the content of it with the national education programming in Lebanon. And for instance, Mr. Yara mentioned the NFE framework, so how can this support and be aligned with this? This is something we have to think about maybe today and even after. And on the adaptability issue, my colleague from UNHCR mentioned many things, but we can, I think about including specific issues to be included in the curriculum and in the content of the program that would support the refugee population, specifically like adding psychosocial support maybe to the content or such things. So those two things I wanted to share. And the last thing we have to think about also is the matter of how Lebanon, if this initiative gonna go in a scale-up way after the pilot, how the acquired learning from this can be validated and accredited. Thanks.
Okay, we'll take another, I saw Muhammad, and then I saw another, okay. So, good, we have quite a few interventions. I will start with Muhammad, then Rami, and then the two ladies.
Hello, I'm working with MAPS organization. It's working implementing the non-formal education. Actually, talking about the technical issues actually might be the easiest part of the implementation, which is actually, I think it's not difficult for any organization who is working in this context. Sorry. The issue that I wanted to ask about is the curriculum, and actually may soon ask maybe the same question that came to my mind. Actually, if it's possible to make the curriculum so similar or like working in parallelism with the formal education, something that can, let's say, support the formal education rather than implementing something international, but still not working in parallelism with the formal education. The second question is, if it's possible to, let's say, to tell us about the prerequisite or the conditions that any organization, for example, can, let's say, meet to be accepted or to be okay to participate in this project. And another one actually is about the accreditation of something, implementation of something like that. If it's possible to make it as we said, like in parallelism with the formal education, to make it easier for the project to be accredited by maybe not by the Ministry of Education, but by the UNESCO, as it's supposed to like they got the certification for the curriculum, but maybe we have to get something like an accreditation for the students to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami.
I am Rami Lais. I manage a local NGO in the area of Baalbek Hermel, and we are also involved in the education, and formal and also sometimes formal education, because we manage a vocational school. I would like ProFuturo please to elaborate more on a type of partnership that they have done, let's say elsewhere, especially in Colombia, because you said that the experience was successful. So what levels the partnership was done, or the cooperation, the role of the Ministry of Education there, or even the NGO sector. So how do you, let's say, do your partnerships? Second, concerning age, when you talk about 4 to 12, the age is exclusive, or we can have, let's say, children above 12? Thank you.
I can't see your name from here. I think the mic is not on.
Okay. Eliane from World Vision. We have previous experience working on digitizing the official early childhood education curriculum, the national early childhood curriculum. We worked on a platform called Tabshura with other local NGOs. So our experience based on that initiative was we had very positive impact because we did a research with St. Joseph University. And we had actually improvement between the control group who did not use the platform and the group who used the platform. And the approach was blended learning, meaning that it was not a standalone, like the platform, like the digitized platform was not the only mean of education that was used. So the children had a hands-on activity and the teacher was there, and they had 3 hours per week using the platform. And the findings were actually really very good, that we found that on the level of communication, they had like 154% improvement on the level of science and math. And we believe that blended learning using ICT is really a successful approach with children. We use it with children as young as 3. And we believe that ProFuturo added value is that it can be working offline and on tablets. And we believe that ICT or digitized education is innovative and it has really impact. What I think is that the added value is that it's offline and we can work on with children in the ISs. So I'm looking forward to see how can we implement this initiative, this platform, and we're happy to share our findings with the rest of you. Thank you.
it's not on? Okay. Mireille Hamouche, Forum for Development, Culture and Dialogue. We are an NGO very involved with the grassroots, so allow me here to raise some concerns that we always have whenever we are to embark on any initiative with the grassroots. I'm sorry if I will sound like repetitive, but the observation made by UNICEF is very relevant here. And again, I want to ask, how do you ensure the sustainability of the program, not only from the educational perspective, but as a whole initiative, from the general perspective? So the idea of the local ownership is very important. Mr. Alietta, you said finances are not your problem, these are my problem, and you talked about the EU budget and all this. And of course, your efforts are to be commended, and they can never be commended enough. However, we know that also from an NGO perspective that when you want to really empower a local community, empowerment is when at the end of the day they own this project, and you can be sure that the project can sustain itself, that one day you will not be needed anymore. And this is also what ensures the healthy side of the initiative. So I would be grateful if you can give us examples, like concrete examples from these 10 years of experience that you had, on how does the mechanism work in other countries? How do you ensure that this program is really going to sustain itself? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Joe.
Joe Awed from Beyond Association. We think that this is a very innovative idea, and we thought about it and we tried to do something before, because we have a problem. I don't know if you know that there is about 4,800 camps around Lebanon, and camps for the Syrian refugees. And the problem is not with the one who is near the city. The problem is with the rural one, where there are small camps with 5 tents, 10 tents, or less than this, which means that you cannot go to them and make a center for education or for child protection or for psychosocial support. How this issue can help to reach them, because we're thinking here about a small number. It's 5 children or 10 children, not more than this, because otherwise we have to make transportation and to bring them to another place and so on. So this is one of the major problems, because most of these children living in these small camps in the rural areas, they are not getting anything, and it's very hard to reach them. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you.
Many questions. Let me say the following. You are going to be impressed. We will be very happy if we are not needed. Okay, it will mean that the work is working well, and there is digital education everywhere, and we don't have to worry. It will happen, yes. How long it has to take? The sooner the better. But at least 10, 15, 20 years are going to be needed. I agree with you. The curriculum has to be local, and we adapt to the local curriculums, and it's more important to be adapted to the local curriculum to the curriculum that is approved by the UNESCO. Why? Because if you are from Tripoli, what you are going to, you need a curriculum in Lebanon, not. But if you have also been certified by UNESCO, then you can go to work in, I don't know, in Palermo, okay? And so that is a big advantage. ONGs, I'm going to be very, very clear, very, very clear. The most important thing, sorry to say that, is to work with the Ministry of Education. Our experience is that when we work with the Ministry of Education, it works very well, okay? We support the Ministry of Education, And in some rural areas where they don't have any school, well, we will put the connectivity, but it's key. I mean, you have to work with the Ministry of Education or with the Governor of Education because it's key. They get everywhere. Then, if we are supported by ONGs, good, okay? But, and here you have, yesterday we were seeing schools in refugee camps that Ms. Jumblat sponsor and the Jesuit, and it's fantastic. We need 25 kids, okay? And the problem is the teacher. We can give the 25 kids the tablet, and those kids will learn anything, you know, and the problem is the teacher, okay? But we will give them the connectivity, and they will give all the programming. 25, I mean, to make a school for 5 kids, well, you know, it's, we can do it, but normally wise, we put 30, okay? And it works. We have many schools in the world that are 30 kids, because it's a small village, and there are no more than 30 or 40 kids, and we give them the connectivity, and the problem is the teacher, okay? It is true that in some places, there are no teachers. We look for the smarter men or women in the village, okay? And we train him in how to use the tablet and all that. It works? Yeah, it works. If there is no teacher, say, who is the smartest? We say to the local people in the village, who is the smarter woman or man in this village? That one, okay. We take you for 3 months, we're going to teach you what to do, and then you, but this is an extreme situation. But also it can be solved, okay? And what more questions we had? So we are very happy to... would like to also speak after. Okay, we are very happy to collaborate with the ONGs. It's very, very important. And we collaborate in many places. And it is true, sorry to say that, in some places that the Ministry of Education doesn't work. There is an ONG that works very well, and we were there with the ONG. And we have done that in Colombia, in Venezuela, in Peru, in Brazil, you know, in some places that the ministry, and there is a very good ONG there, and we work with them. And we support them, and it's very, 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 very positive, no? You want to say something else?
Maybe I can. Thank you. Yeah, I'll try to complement with, trying to answer.
I want to tell you one thing which is, I don't want to forget to tell you. You know, 8 years ago, we saw that there were very smart kids in Latin America that were very good in digital applications, and they had very good ideas. And we created one thing which is called Guaira. Guaira means wind in Quechua. Quechua is the local language of the Indians in the What we have found is that these kids are developing digital applications better than they would do in Silicon Valley, okay? They don't have to move from their place, and they do digital applications that are used all over the world. We have had 100,000 kids doing new applications, which are competing with Silicon Valley. Is that possible to do that? Sure. You teach a kid digital applications, and when he's 16, 17, he has an idea, and he can have an idea that can be exported to the whole world, because this is a different world. I wanted to tell you about that experience, that now we have more than 100,000 applications that are used by everybody, that have been created by kids, women, girls and boys, 18, 17 years in Peru, in the middle of the Amazon, in Argentina, in the Alps, and it works very well. It can work here. Oh, why not? Yeah, it can work here.
Okay. Someone asked here about the minimum conditions. I guess someone raised its hand. Now, I was thinking that within the brochures that we've shared with you, there was a point 5.4, which is not in the printed version, but I'm gonna circulate it through the distribution list, and it describes those minimum conditions to make it feasible. And I will read just 2 or 3 of them, but this is for discussion more thoroughly once that we get information. But it talks about the partner, the field partner, for instance, it is good, it is necessary that you have your own staff to coordinate, because we partner with local on the field partners. So that's like a very basic one. Regarding size of schools, and getting back to your point, Mr. Joe Ward, I mean, we can do marvelous things with technology, because that case over there is only 12 tablets. We could also have a back package with 5 or 6 tablets. Now, what we need to think about, and out of the box, and I think that's a good idea, Alierta, maybe we need to find out those savvy people among those communities, because if there's something you cannot miss, is the teacher. I mean, whether it's a professional or someone who can deal with transition, that's fine.
We've already trained teachers
Okay.
in the community.
Exactly. So then the next level of coordination has to do with those coordinators I was mentioning. Then let's figure that out, because I'm just theorizing, but we need to discuss specific cases. We could put, let's say, 2 coordinators to walk around and walk through different sites of small sites, just to supervise that those sort of teachers are doing well, that they don't need any support, or if it is the case, they can cope with that. So we want to adjust to the local situation. So that's one case that we should be analyzing. So you will get all these. It talks about the school infrastructure, energy, connectivity, qualifications of teaching, and all that stuff as minimum conditions. Now, someone asked about the number of hours to be given to teachers, because we need to adjust to those levels. We have a very good example here in Lebanon. Talking to the Jesuits, we realized that what we were offering it was complementary to what they were offering to teach the trainers. And that's what we're doing. We are reshaping our value proposal to make sure that the training that I showed you, which is just a starting point, just food for thought, it's a theoretical model that we are actually applying in some countries. If it doesn't work, we have to adjust it. And this is what we are negotiating with them. So we are providing ICT uptake sort of knowledge, and they are providing us with pedagogical, sort of contents that are being used in their schools. So we co-create the set of contents that we want to provide to teachers. Make sense? Okay, with regards to sustainability, that's actually a very good question. And in the next document that we prepare, we'll make sure that we go up front explaining our vision on that. I mean, to be practical, all the contents and the platform has the free use forever. I mean, the contents and the platform. So even if we were not there, that would be free use for the people, the schools. Okay, that's for one thing. Now, with regards to upgrading or enhancing the contents, it's open, and you can add your own content to that platform. So, and that takes me to the match with the official curricula. Once again, we do not pretend at all to substitute anything. It's been said many, many times. What we think is that if we match with one specific contents, maybe the approach, methodological approach that we are providing is going to be more effective, because the kid is going to sort of play with the concepts, is going to have interaction. I mean, just to give you an example, in Angola, in Moxico, one of the places we're going, when it's the day of the tablet, nobody fails to attend to school. I mean, they don't even realize they're learning. So it's just to help the teachers to do things much easier. And if this methodology might not work, we are open to, as it is the case with the GSR, but could be with any of you, we could adjust and match and try new methodologies. I was talking about the big data. Maybe there's one key methodology here in Lebanon being used already, and we are not aware of that. And we would like to include that and export that to many other places. Why not? Our colleagues from Peru were saying, Sofia, we need to complement the syllabus with the official one. And I said, yes, thank you, just go ahead, but please make sure that I can use them, because they might be useful also for Ecuador. Why not? Or any other countries of the Latin American. So this is sort of a co-creation or co-development value proposal on education. And with regards to to the hardware, another sustainable issue. Yes, we donate the equipment. There's only one condition, it is the good use. If that was the case, which is not going to be, hopefully that they were not using the equipment, we would take that back and provide it to another place where it would be needed. But it would be for good. Normally, beyond amortization accounting issues, it lasts like 5 years, depending on how well you treat the equipment. Now, this is a very good point. We've seen that in many countries, it is the government, the one who eventually want to provide with technology to schools. And you know what? Providing technology without the contents, the methodologies, and the people trained to use that is useless. So normally what they do is that they want to partner. We go first, we risk the concept, the usage, and then once that they see it makes sense, many of them want to partner. We were having conversations with Intel. Intel has conversations with the Kenyan government, and they want to sell equipment. But you know what? The Kenyan government does not want to just spread out equipment. They want a good use of it. So this is another partner for many governments who want to, facilitate this.
That happens in Argentina. They give computers to each school and they know how to use it. It's a disaster. In Argentina,
So, from the sustainability point of view, the software would be given for good. The hardware lasts as much as it lasts, and it's our intention to make sure that in the long run we partner with either the private or the public sector to the repositioning of everything. In every school, in many schools, we are seeing that there's technology actually. So,
Sophia, sorry, may I interrupt? May I interrupt you for 1 minute, because Mr. Yara needs to go and attend back to the ministry for urgent issues. So we're just going to hear from him as final input, and then we can come back to the answers to the questions.
Thank you, Maham. Actually, yes, one of the questions that you asked me to answer is what are the incentives for commitment and participation? And I think we don't need to convince ourselves about the incentive for students. You just mentioned it. Students would love to see a tablet in their hands. They are eager to see devices everywhere in the world. They are born with devices. We belong to a generation that we immigrated to technology. It's totally different when they have a device in their hands. NGOs in the field and public administration, my opinion is, again, and I think Joe mentioned it in a way, what will be the ecosystem? So let's see what is the viable ecosystem in the Lebanese context, sir. What will be? There is initiatives. I can enumerate few of them now. Let's see what is the optimal, again, ecosystem where this initiative would live in a camp, partnering with a municipality or an NGO or a local community, or in a public schools, or in a community center, and we'll see what is needed. There is material, and I think my main question was, since the beginning, what is the connectivity or the exportability? And also, Sophia, thank you, you answered. Yes, we have few materials in Lebanon, we can export them. We'll see technically, the people together will sit and will work. We have curriculum for non-formal education already produced. We have part of it digital and others needs. My final, the commitment is there, I don't think that ourselves we are ready to participate and to see how it can work. The UN didn't throw the idea of a pilot and a committee that would study it from a technical point of view, from education point of view, and from a social that would be the element of this ecosystem, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yap.
Okay, I think there was another question about the 5 tablets per kid. Sorry, 5 kids per tablet, right?
Yeah, we were given information that it would be for the tablets that it would be 1 tablet for every 5 children.
No, okay, yeah. It all depends on the size, but we have different size of cases. It's 12, 30, 40, and 48. And it adjusts. Actually, originally we had 25 tablets per case, and we realized that that was not very practical. It depends on the place. I mean, in the extreme, and let me tell you what an extreme is for us, like in some refugees camps in Africa, like one in Kaduna, in Kakuma in Kenya, you will see classrooms of 150 pupils, students. So, I mean, we don't have 150, the maximum is 48. It has to be in pairs. But, I mean, either we provide with 2 cases, or the teacher, what they do is the sort of grouping the class and making sure that they adjust the itinerary so that they can be eventually using this. And I think that you were asking also, how do we support the teacher? Because one thing is to learn how to use the ICTs, and another one is to teach with them. Every single unit, because I think you saw the unit and the structure, every single unit has a user's guide, a teacher's guide. So that guide, which is printed, what you can see is our recommendation about how to proceed. And that includes offline activities, like I would recommend you grouping or applying an inverse class for this particular skill, or they can, and you may want to alternative do this or that, and it's all, and that is part of what UNESCO has reviewed, the user's guide, because they were very good at identifying, matching whether what our aspirational was in terms of methodology was really reflected in that user guide.
So, just to clarify, so there's no restriction. So if we say we want a suitcase for this school, that we won't be dictated to how many tablets come. We can say we want this many tablets, this size of suitcase for whichever. Okay. And just to follow up, so we were talking about the training for the teachers on the technology, and the user guide is fantastic because, you know, as a teacher, that's your go-to, first of all, whenever you're starting a new curriculum. But we were also talking about you know, the variance in capacity for teachers, and, you know, so different teachers, as we were saying, have different certifications and may not have used technology in the classroom before. Is there any chance that there can be training provided for teachers in lesson planning and using technology? Because as I said, and as you've acknowledged, it is a very different way of teaching, and it can be incredibly tempting just to give kids tablets and say, all right, tea time, have a nice day, see you later.
You know what, in Latin America, and this is something that we are leveraging on, we developed something in Fundación Telefónica, something called Aulas Fundación Telefónica, which basically means Fundación Telefónica classrooms. Now, that was to provide ICT knowledge, basic knowledge, to the teachers, not only how to use a computer, but how to use it in a class, how you can make the best out of it. And actually, it's going to be implemented in one school that the URS is offering us to go. There's part of that content that is going to be used. And so I agree, it's not only about turning on and off, It has to do with what can I do with this and my students. And we have developed contents and they can learn out of that. Now, the coordinator, as part of his responsibility, has to do continuous support. And that includes, refreshing the training of those teachers that have been trained.
I think there are many questions and still lots of unanswered points, but let's have a break for 15 to 20 minutes. So if we try to come back 11:35, that will give us 15 minutes, and then we can take another round of questions. Thank you very much. Okay, if I may be the devil advocate in this session, now that I've had some coffee and food and, I'm refreshed again. So, and as an academic, we tend to always think of like, what if, but, all of these issues. I think, listening to you, and we'll get more feedback from the colleagues here around the room, but I think there are some, important questions to talk about. There are issues of adaptation of the content. There are issues of partnering. You've mentioned that you want to partner mainly with the government, but I think some NGOs might also be wanting to explore possibility of collaboration. I think one very important group that is not here is UNRWA, and which is the UN agency for Palestinian refugees, and I think they would benefit so much from this, and I think it'd be great to have this conversation also with them, because they cater for thousands of Palestinian refugees who tend to be the least educated in terms of their academic achievement, and they've been telling me about their attempt to use such systems. Actually, I was there yesterday, and they were talking about similar system to this, but I don't know the details, but it might be good also to involve them. But let's think of practically, on the ground, if this were to start tomorrow, what kind of issues we need to think, what kind of milestones we need to go through, and what kind of adaptation, changes, systems, setup that need to be on the ground. And so I will open the floor for discussions around these areas, and I would really welcome comments and questions. And let's be very frank and honest, and think of all the possibilities and the limitations that might come up. So we have around, let's see how much time we have for this. Sorry? 1 hour. We have 1 hour to discuss, the implementation part and the practical steps that we need to take into account when considering the implementation of such project. So I will take a first round of questions, and then we'll get answers and your feedback on them, and then we'll take a second round.
We were talking about.
Do you mind introducing yourself? Thank you.
Maria from Beyond Association. We were talking about the content, and one of the slides showing that how we can enhance citizenship. If it's possible for refugees to take care how much we want them to be really involved or to enhance their citizenship for their country or for our different countries. Just to take care about this in the content, that life skills, yes, all the kind of education, but issue maybe it will be sensitive for our community, for Lebanese community, and for the to talk about enhancing citizenship for refugees in Lebanon. Maybe we can. It's just like maybe we can do something that what we said, that to enhance their citizenship for their own country, not for the country that they are living in.
Thank you, Maria. Any other comments? Yes, please.
Hi. My name is Lykke Stavnes. I'm with UNHCR. I was wondering if you could please just clarify. I'm curious, and I would like to just to highlight one of the basically an issue that I just wanted to know if there's been a lot of thinking around it, and I'm sure it has, considering how much developed this project is so far. But in Lebanon, many of the refugee children, they tend to drop out after grade 4, let's say. The dropout rate starts increasing a lot. And I'm interested in hearing how you think these children could be, or the children who do drop out and who are out of school, just the reason they're out of school, there are many reasons for that. There are reasons why they dropped out. They need clear incentives to go back in or to start at all. That's why I'm thinking it would be interesting to hear if there's any sort of what would be the incentive for a child who is, say, 9 years old to go into this program, if this is because it's 720 hours modules. This is the basic one, right? And then the next one, there are 4 of them in total, so that might lead you to 4 academic years. I don't know if it's completely aligned with national curriculums, probably not, but if that's the aim for an older child to go into the program, is the vision kind of a life skills better prepared for the world, or is it livelihoods? Maybe that child, after they finish the expert level, will they be more likely to access employability possibilities? And for the younger children, if they start at a younger age, is the aim for them to kind of go into a formal school and then end up with a certificate in order to enhance their future opportunities?
Thank you. Actually, I was wondering about this point, which is education for what? Because I think most education programs targeting refugees don't answer the future question. It's mainly literacy. This is what we find. Like even the Syrian refugees in our schools, they don't make it to secondary. There's less than 2% of them in secondary schools. It is education just for literacy, and it's not enough. We know that. So this is actually also a question that I would like to put for you. It's like, education for what future? Is it only for them to be able to read and write? What they can do with it? Are there any programs that might be developed for later stage? So I think we have 3 questions, and then we'll take your answers, and we'll come back for another round.
There is a clear correlation between dropouts and no digital education. This is all over the world, okay? Any country you look at it, when they don't have digital education, the dropout after primary school is very, very big. When you give digital education to those kids, the dropout descends very, very much, and that happens everywhere. Everywhere. It happens in Argentina, in Brazil, in Spain, everywhere. And why there is dropout? Because they say, so what? When we are learning, what I'm going to do? I want to make a living, and I cannot make a living with literacy. With literacy, you cannot make a living, and you cannot see any future for you, and so they drop out, they go to work, okay? When they have digital education, they see a tremendous future. Now, let me tell you one example. I'm going to talk about Spain, okay? We have a high unemployment rate, very high unemployment rate with kids that only had primary education because they are not ready to work in anywhere, okay? So we develop, and I'm not saying that we have to do here, we develop what we call professional training in digital skills, okay? It takes around 6 months to 1 year. We train them in digital skills, and they all find a job. 95% of the kids that take, and it's basically can be presential, but basically we do it online. 95% of the kids that have digital training skills are find a job, okay? So, what we have found, which is incredible, but it's true, we said to the trade unions, okay? What you are interested, the trade unions are interested in their members having higher salaries, And we told the trade unions, if your members don't have any digital skill, they will have low salaries, but if they have digital education, they will have higher salaries because companies will hire them. So we have a tremendous backing from the trade unions to do that. Why? Because people that don't have any job, they find a job, okay? And this has to do with the 350 million kids that the world needs in the next 3 years that are not trained in digital skills, okay? And this will happen in Lebanon, in Syria, anywhere, okay? Because I agree with you, there is, many of the boys and girls from the refugees think, maybe in 2-3 years I go back to Syria, okay? But if they go back to Syria with digital skills, they will find a job. But if they go to Syria back with literacy, so what? Okay? So this is, and I finish. Dropout correlation with no digital skill is tremendous. Everywhere. So, and it's logic. And so we found out that when you give them digital skills, there is no dropout because they think, oh, I have a future, that I can find a job, but I want to continue, I want to know more about this, and they keep going to school, okay?
I just want to say something. I think, Mr. Eliarta, that dropouts also in Lebanon in the formal school are due to curriculum difficulties for these children who do not have enough support in the schools, and they have to adapt to a system which is not theirs, and they're not used to it, and they have no support at home. Another one of the difficulties is the time of the second shift in many schools that goes from 4 to 7 at night. Many families don't want their children to go. I think these are things that we all know, that don't want to send their children to go to school at night. They have to go back at 7. Can you imagine in the Bekaa walking alone from the camps or to the camps? That's lack of transportation also is one of the main reasons for it. And really there is a lot of also, we have to say that, although Lebanon has really welcomed the refugees and done a huge effort, however, there remains some violence and some racism in school, and this is a fact. This is not, and this is also as a drawback for dropouts. So I'm not sure how this digital, we have to have the digital system or education help these children with the curriculum also. Maybe it's just a support. It's not going to replace the curriculum. It's just going to be a support. So I think that could be very interesting, and I think this is mainly what you are saying. It's a support system, and maybe it can help in the numbers.
In regards to you know that in the Andes there are many Indians, and they only speak Spanish. They speak Quechua or Aymara, whatever they speak, okay? And these poor boys and girls have a complex because they don't speak Spanish. They dress differently. They go with their Indian dresses, and the other kids they go normally and they speak Spanish. So we brought them digital education. They know mathematics. They know physics. They are learning English, they learn first Spanish, and now they are very, very happy, very, very happy. And actually, what we are doing, which is fantastic, is through digital means, teaching them classic music, how to play the violin, the cello, and so what, but you have a boy in the middle of nowhere who can learn how to play a violin or a cello through a tablet. He has never seen, the only thing he has heard always is local music, and then he sees that he has Beethoven or whatever, and he's very happy, and he says, I want to, and then we have to support give the violin, but that's another problem. And that helps a lot, okay? And you see the faces of those kids playing the violin in the middle of the Amazons, and it's fantastic. And they go with their dresses, and There is a
yeah.
big integration.
Yes, but also I think this raises the question of acculturation, which I think we have suffered a lot in Lebanon. For instance, our curriculum, Lebanese curriculum, is not designed with the refugees in mind, nor does it talk about Palestinians or anything. Palestinian refugees in Lebanon have suffered a lot of social acculturation and historical acculturation because we're not considered to their culture. And I think this is a very big challenge that this program is going to have, is how you adapt the material to be culturally and socially sensitive to the Lebanese and to the Syrians and to the Palestinians from different backgrounds. So maybe they don't want to learn violin, maybe they want to learn something else. And I think it's very important. I know. Yes, but I'm giving an example because this is also another issue, and one of the reasons for dropout is the second language. In Lebanon, we have to learn math and science in French or English. And it becomes almost compulsory after grade 6. So you see a huge dropout in grade 6 and 7 because suddenly children have to learn a language they don't even speak. So this is a big issue. So there are all these problems. I think, for me, the biggest challenge is the content. What goes in, and also the teachers, how they will see it. But anyway, I want to open the floor. I don't want to talk too much. Any more questions and comments on, if you can foresee any challenges for the implementation of this project, if you think, there are any particular points that need to be taken into account? Yes, please.
This is Mustafa Al-Haj. Thank you so much for this fruitful discussion. Actually, I have one question. As a non-formal initiative, I would like to know if there is a kind of cooperation. Does the MIHE will help us to do this, or just we will work under the MIHE? This is the first question. The second question is, Mr. Mirli asked the question, and I'm waiting the answer about the sustainability and about giving an like example that happened in the world. So if that will, inshallah, happen here in our schools. Thank you so much.
Any other questions and comments? Yes, Eliane. Right, so we have two.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Sustainability. You know what they are thinking in Oxford and Cambridge? Oxford and Cambridge, I'm not talking. They are thinking they are going to give 2 years courses. Because through the digital means, education is going to be continuous, okay? Because you have to be, and how you get the continuous education? Through a tablet, okay? And you get everyday education, because the world is changing so fast that, and it happens to many of us that are here, that what they taught us in the university is nothing. It's not good for now. It's totally obsolete. So the education is going to be continuous. So when you learn how to use the digital means to update your education in whatever, mathematics, algorithms, history, you will use it your whole life, and you are going to need it. And I was saying before, talking to the, we had a small meeting with and there was Oxford and Cambridge and some big universities, and they said, the typical, sorry to say that, the typical university has to change. Now, you all heard about the MOOCs, MOOCs is the MOOCs. Yeah. Well, all the kids that now go to primary school, they're going to study with MOOCs, and they will not go to presential. And what is the problem of the universities? That the teachers at the university, they study, they made an exam, and they keep that telling their kids, the guys in the university, the same thing, and this is obsolete. And many professors at the university don't want to actualize their know-how every year to make the MOOCs, and that's a big problem. The biggest problem is in the university in Europe and Latin America is that the professors don't want to actualize their knowledge and do the MOOCs, because, you have to work every year, and that's a problem, very big problem. And it means the university system has to change to MOOCs. Sorry to say that, but it is like that.
Thank you for this comment, but let me address it because you're referring to me. So basically, blended courses, we have at least at AUB 80 blended courses. Our courses have been, in general, in university. So we're realizing the vision of the president. The president is all for accessibility of education, and accessibility of education starts with basically developing online courses. So we have 80 blended courses that we have redesigned on campus. And every year we have workshops at AUB for redesigning courses, and we have about 20 to 25 registrants. Not only that, we're also in the process of signing agreements with the Al-Ghurair Foundation and with working closely with MIT to make the MIT edX platform available for our courses and for our faculty members, so that we can develop foundational courses that are online and perhaps fully online with a very, very small component of just testing on campus. So we're moving in that direction. I mean, this is the future, and we're heading in that direction. And
okay, thank you, Hannah.
I agree.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't divert to university and we stay with.
I agree with you 100%. But MIT does a good job. Okay, but you look around many, and we have I don't know many in Latin America. I think we have 5 million people that follow the MOOCs, and what we are trying to do is to give a certificate. You know, I did a MOOC on algorithms, okay? And you are certified that you did the MOOC on algorithms. You have the exam online, and you say, okay, you are ready to do algorithms. And there, your certificate is good anywhere, okay? Because I know a lot of algorithms. And sorry, you don't need to go to the university. I'm exaggerating, okay? But it will happen. Eh?
Thank you. So we have Elizabeth.
Sorry. If you want to talk about the practical side of implementing ProFuturo in non-formal education setting or informal education setting, what we faced as main challenge were the teacher, because it's very important because you're changing their way of teaching and their perception of teaching, and it's very difficult when you're working in blended learning when they have to set the class planning as per the standards and to introduce a platform and to make sure that the objectives they're working towards is ensured working on both methods. So this is one in informal education, and it's a main challenge where the teacher has to learn as much as he has to teach, and it takes a lot of time of planning, and sometimes the teachers are resistant to that. And when it comes to non-formal education settings, sometimes it's even more challenging, because even though teachers are trained on technology, sometimes they lack the basic skills, and we need ongoing coaching and training for those teachers. And doing lesson planning in non-formal education is already challenging. And when you're adding an additional approach or a tool, it's even more challenging just to align the standards of the curriculum to the standards of the platform you are suggesting. And I believe that in order for this project to be successful in those settings, it needs ongoing coaching, and it needs resources, meaning qualified coaches or teachers, and ongoing coaching. So if we want to talk about what you were referring to in ISs, in TANs, where we don't have teachers and there's no structure, and it's a real challenge. I don't know if you have previous experience or you have lessons learned or evidence on what works best, what are the best practices in each context, so we can share on this platform. Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. The problem, and you were very right describing the problem, is that we are in a big change, the biggest change in human history in education. We are going from the traditional education to the digital education. Basically, all the teachers, professors are non-digital, okay? and you have to make them digital. And, people don't want to change because, but there are systems to correct that. And I'm going to tell you one system that works very well. We did it in an area, there were 7,000 schools, and the lady who was running that area said, I want to digitalize my schools. They were public schools. So she said, I'm going to look in every school for the 1 or 2, 3 teachers that are more qualified to be digital, and they will coach the other teachers to become digital. And you know what she said and what she did? Every year, I'm going to evaluate all the teachers in each school. And the one that is digitalized will have a bonus of 20% more, okay? So, we use bonus in private sectors, and the guy that is digitalized gets a much better salary than the guy that was. So you have to do that in public. It works perfectly, because all the people want to have a bonus, 20, 30% more, if they digitalize, and that has made a tremendous effect. The conclusion, 7,000 public schools now are digitalized because of the system. And they started with 2 or 3 teachers, most qualified, because they had studied mathematics or whatever, and they were ready to be digitalized. And then they coach the others, and the others want to have the bonus, and it works. And then also the teachers that are not digital are not very popular with the kids. And they have a problem. They have a problem of saying the kids, telling them, hey, you don't know anything. I know more than you do. That's not very good for somebody who is giving a class that the kids of 12 years say you are obsolete. It works. It works.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Sorry, it just turns off on it. One question, and maybe isn't a fair question, but I wonder really who is the target audience for this program, and I just think it's something to think about. Are you thinking about the public school system? Are you thinking about kids that are in the education, which is actually the ALP program, which is the non-formal framework here is not what kind of, I think we all commonly think of non-formal education as being outside of the formal system. Non-formal education here now means the framework that the Ministry of Education is working with. And then there's I think we call them non-certified programs that are run by NGOs and are really about preparing students in tented settlements or who can't have access to any of the formal settings. And each 3 of those areas are very different an audience and might need a different platform. And so I think it's worth thinking about who we're actually talking about, because I think then the conversation, it's really hard to say, well, I'm planning for the second shift and that's what we're targeting, because then that thought and that conversation is going to be so different than setting up in non-formal settlements. So I think, and maybe if you're interested in reaching a lot of people widely within Lebanon, there is sort of a thinking about changing the platform depending on who's the audience, just because it's just there's different teachers, there are different settings, and there's different students in different school sets. So that's just one thing. And then the other thing that you guys had talked about really briefly, and I can't help but be interested in as a doctoral student, is data. And I know data here is like gold, and there's not a lot of it running around very easily for a lot of us to have access to. And there isn't a really formalized EMIS system here. And so I was wondering how, EMIS, there's no integrated system within the government that really keeps track systematically of their students, of their learning, of all the things you have in many other countries. So I was wondering how this system might work without an EMIS system, how the data is then available to everyone, and then who owns that data? Do you as Telefonica own that data and get sort of ultimate control over it? What happens if students don't want to be part of sort of a big cloud? Because I think big data is a big question these days. So I'm wondering what data might be available for people, because I think data is really needed around here, and it's actually something that would be great to have. And then sort of my last question is, I really support technology and I think it's great. I'm just wondering what will added technology do that is not going to do, or that we shouldn't maybe start first with just basic training of our teachers who don't have a lot of quality training as it is. So I'm wondering, is it possible to put those two things together very quickly at once, or should we be starting with just dealing with improving the quality of teaching and then introducing something more complicated like technology?
Let me remind you why we started ProFuturo. Do you remember that I said I went to lunch with the Pope, and he said, what is your main worry? And I said, my main worry are the kids in the world that don't go to school. So we launched ProFuturo to educate the kids in the world that don't go to school. And it's the main target of ProFuturo is to teach those kids that don't go to school. But what has happened? When I retired as CEO of Telefónica, my first dedication was the foundation in ProFuturo, and the second, I ran digital education, okay? Because what I found, and that is true, that some areas in which we introduced digital education with kids that were not going to school, they had a better formation than the kids that were going to public schools. And I say, wow, that's incredible. And so our main goal is the kids that don't go to school. And they have their education since they are 5 to they are 17. But also we have seen that, and sorry to say that, public education is not very good because it's outdated, okay? It's outdated in Germany and it's outdated here, okay? It is like that, all right? And so that's a fact. And we see there is a need for that. That's very important for the whole world, okay? And for the education system. We prefer to work with public system. Why? Because the private sector has more money, and sorry to say that, but the private sector has more money, and they should be more active on digital education. Some of them are very much like my friends here, and some are not, okay? And they are not very much digitalized. But at the end, it's a global problem, because we go back to the roots of a new world which is digital, okay? So, but we in ProFuturo, we started to teach the kids who don't have any education. And we have found that some places where they started 4 years, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, giving education to kids that had no education are more skilled than the ones in the public school 20 kilometers away, where they still have the same education. So that's the reason we want to talk to the government. But this is not a responsibility, it's the responsibility of the governments, okay? And public schools are normally where the kids that have less means go to private schools, sorry. They go to private schools in any world. But they have to discover that, and universities is the same thing. For I'm going to tell you one example. I went to see she's a woman, the mayor of Madrid, okay? She's a woman, no? Eh? And I said, he said, I had 10 places to teach people that are unemployed. And what do you teach them? To be carpenters, to be plumbers, but we don't need carpenters and plumbers. How much it costs you? One alone per year. And she said 5,000 euros. You know, with 5,000 euros, I can teach 50 kids, 10 kids digital skills, which are needed. So you are throwing away 5,000 euros, and she's a left winger. So I say, you are very leftist, but you don't worry about the people. She didn't like the comment, but anyway.
Yeah. Any feedback also on the issue of data and some of the points that Elizabeth?
Yeah. Okay, big data. Okay, data you know there's going to be a big change in the world because data is the property of the people that produce the data, okay? And this is not like that. And it has to change. So, big data should be, if it is the Ministry of Education, it should be the property of the Ministry of Education. If it is, it's not going to be Telefonica, okay? We know how to make the big data, but the results are for the person that, for the institution that, or the person that has generated the data. And it has to be like that. Why is not? You want to know it? It's very clear. All the operating systems in Internet basically are two, Android and iOS. Android from Google and iOS from Apple, okay? And they are closed operating system. What it means closed operating system? That the final algorithms are only known by Google and iOS. So you are not free. Eh? The only one free in this country, in this place, is me. Because I have a phone which is not a smartphone, so neither Google, neither Apple knows my life. I know my life, okay? This is going to change, yes, when? In the second part of the year, okay? Because all of you, your life is known by Google and Apple. This is the end of freedom, okay? And freedom is very important. So we, in the digital world, you all have lost your freedom. You are not free because Google and Apple know everything. And if Google and Apple know everything, the United States knows everything, okay? And it is like, no, for sure, for sure. United States is the country that knows everybody's life, and the rest we don't know the United States life. That's a fact. But it's going to change. So big data will be the property of the one that generates data and not from the others, okay? But big data is necessary. Big is necessary.
Pia has something to add as well.
Yeah, I mean, regarding if that was another question behind that one, the privacy, we are fully aware of the name of the game in terms of how and under which conditions we can use that data. So, of course, it's going to be anonymized data, that is for sure, because we are talking about children, and that is part of the way we work, and it's volunteer. Now, let me tell you that, for instance, with UNICEF, Telefonica has already partnered with what they call the fourth platform. And basically, this is all about putting together different pieces of data. So not only, for instance, these that should be, generated within the system, but also if you add or complete that with contextual data about the environments where we're going, then we can all work together in providing, enhanced solutions based on different pieces of data. So you can, even if they're not schools from this particular initiative, ProFuturo, that data would be useful for the government, for instance. So that it's like elevating the discussion and what's behind this. But of course, bearing in mind that we do understand the name of the game, we're very cautious about that. We respect privacy, and this is all about anonymized data that is, yes, utilized within that big databases, because there are engineers, experts on analytics behind that, trying to figure out how to recommend the best solution for each particular community. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to ask a follow-up question to that, in speaking about the data, we were talking about tracking the children's progress. At World Vision, we have an issue with giving too much identifying information on the children. So did you mention that they would be anonymously identified in the system, like by numbers?
Yeah, for instance, when the kid is only requested, the teacher does, not me, the ID and the password. Now, the ID is not name and last name of the kid. It's whatever he wants to, but it's not going to be one particular person identified. The only thing you're going to know is that he's a maybe boy and girl. It comes from the 4th grade, and 4 or 5 features. But you don't know you're talking about James Smith.
Right. Okay. And can I ask one more question? We're talking in like really theoretical terms. I wanted to bring this down to sort of a more on the ground, how it's going to impact our organization. You know, so in Turkey, World Vision in Turkey is completely grant funded, and right now we're running in fiscal year 17 about $40 million. So we've got a lot going on. So I'm wondering how this is going to impact us on an organizational level. What are your, first of all, what sort of reporting requirements do you have? Are we talking about monthly reporting, and what sort of meal requirements like M&D do you have for us to do in the field?
Yeah, okay. Regarding the finance, yes, I mean, the reporting, we do request every 3 months report on activity. And actually, when we agree on the amount of money, because let's make distinction between donation of equipment and hard and software, which is something which is in kind, and the actual money that we need to pay for the coordinators. Basically, I would say that's the main expense, and in some cases, some other issues. Now, with regards to the money, only 40% is paid as the first signing of the contract, and afterwards, based on that, every 3 months report, we will be providing with additional funding up to whatever we've agreed. Like, for instance, other issues that come along with the finance has to do with the training. When we train, we don't train one teacher aside. Normally, we gather teachers from all the schools that are part of the same operation, and that might mean a class like this one that we have today. All of us coming from different areas, so it's transportation, depends, huh? And it's food and beverage, and it's all these facilities to be paid. That type of thing is the one that, in order for you to be, to be able to afford that, we pay upfront 40%, and then it depends on whether it's working out based on our plan.
So just to make sure that I got you right, so the training and the cost of the coordinators is paid partially by you and then by...
Totally.
By you.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
Right,
coordinators. It's not the teachers. It's a different. I mean, the teachers are part of the education system, and we don't have that much money to pay the whole educational system. But I mean, coordinators, in principle, then we have to study each case. In principle, they cover on average 10 schools. So the move from a school to another one, that's why those schools are not that far away from each other, because those two guys, normally it's a couple of coordinators, one is more technical and the other one is more pedagogical. And they both deal with the first tier sort of incidents that the teachers may have. And they are their responsibility has to do with making sure that this is being used.
Sorry for Harvard and sorry for Columbia, because I'm from Columbia University, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I was, Bilderberg is a meeting in Bilderberg, it's a meeting which 100 persons who think they are very smart go, okay? They are not so smart, but anyway. So I was there, and I said, I talk about privacy, okay? And how it was a well-program of privacy. And the guy who is the head of research of MIT said, I agree with you, so now we are working together, okay? All right? So be happy to work with MIT. Sorry for Harvard.
Thank you. We have one question, I think. We have one, and there was another. So 2 questions. Okay.
Anita Libiar from AGBU. I just wanted to ask, beyond the penetration number into communities, the ProFuturo, do you have other KPIs to measure the success?
Yeah, KPIs, los KPIs que miden el éxito. KPIs, okay. I mean, there are 2 different sets of KPIs, what we call the output and what we ambition, which is the outcome. Now, the output is very straightforward. I mean, it has to do with the operational success. It means the time that those computers are underused, the the proportion of students within the schools which are using this, to what extent these contents are being used or just a subset of them. That's another interesting point of analysis. So they're operational sort of KPIs, basically, which answer to the question, is it being used and is it rendering immediate results, like are the students passing successfully these tests, for instance? Now, the outcome has got to do with that transformation of education that we are aiming. And for that, Caixa has proposed a methodology that was already mentioned in this room, the randomized controlled trial, which basically means putting groups which are being benefited by this and another set of schools similar, but they're chosen randomized, which are not using the same, and then after a certain time and usage, you compare the outcomes. So it's sort of isolating different factors that may not explain how this can help actually to enhance the education. So this second methodology is pretty expensive, and it requires a huge number of schools which need to be part of the sample, otherwise it won't be representative. And there's always a fighting between the academics and us, because we would like it to make it small, and they want to make sure about the outcome, so they are very cautious, very prudent. But in any case, we cannot systematize the randomized control trial methodology because it's very expensive, but we are trying to select different sort of operations that would be afterwards benchmarked again, others similar. Like, for instance, we're going to start with Angola in Africa. That might be comparable to some of the countries nearby. And we're going to start another one in Colombia and Brazil. For the time being. Now, have we started with a context like this that we were facing yesterday with refugees camps, or no, we haven't yet? That's too early for us. We don't have the data, but that probably would be another area of study.
Thank you. Muhammad?
I'm just actually repeating the same questions raised before the break. First, who is eligible to participate in this initiative? Let's say I'm talking about organizations. Is there going to be any prerequisite considering the children, the kids? Are they like specific target group? Let's say, and about the accreditation for those kids, it's going to be an added value for the initiative. So if it's possible to grant those children who's going to enroll in this initiative something that accredit, like an added value, as you said, like something related to the UNESCO, for example. One more thing, actually, or a suggestion, let's say. The Ministry of Education and Higher Education is working on the BLN, Basic Literacy and Numeracy curriculum. So it's going to be, like, hopefully released soon. So implementing something already adopted by the Ministry of Education, like the BLN curriculum, in this initiative. And instead, like it's going to be maybe more effective than using something from abroad. One more thing, actually, instead of repeating the same beneficiaries, for example, all the NGOs, they have outreach and they have specific beneficiaries. So if we're going to repeat, as Mrs. Noura Jumblat said, like repeating the same beneficiaries, and maybe we're going to ignore maybe the 250,000 students who don't have any kind of access to education. So if there is going to be, there might be something like prerequisite or like conditions for enrolling those students to target those who are the most vulnerable, like in education sector, and those who didn't have any access to education. So basic literacy and numeracy might be the most appropriate, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, well, too many questions. Maybe I'll have to go one by one. I think I heard something about quotas of different segments. Is that what you were referring to?
Sorry, I didn't get the...
Well, your first question was regarding different segments of population, whether we were leaving behind some sort of segments. Is that your question,
Yeah.
in terms of who is eligible?
Yeah, the organizations, like all the organizations in Lebanon, all the initiatives are going to be eligible to participate in strategic, what are the limitations considering number of beneficiaries?
Okay, with regards to eligibility or feasibility, we have provided sort of a sheet which contains the information that we need to gather. Now, let me explain this. The answer cannot be straightforward because we need to analyze in each and every operation that is an opportunity. For instance, you might propose a couple of schools, but on their own, it would not be as effective as if we gather together your schools and the schools of another NGO, so we can add together and create sort of a pilot. And so we need, first of all, to identify the opportunity, the need, and then structure the best way to approach that. So in principle, it is not that there are certain type of NGOs that would be eligible or not. Let's think of an operational effectiveness point of view. For that, we are providing this we can provide this on an online forum, but that would help us to identify the opportunity, whether you are very spread, whether they're rural and there's a good opportunity gathering all together, and so on and so forth. Okay, we would make distinction between formal and public and all that, because that is also something we need to analyze. And it's difficult for us. It would be not very cautious to say, yes, go ahead, you are in. We need to study the whole thing. That's with regards to feasibility and eligibility, okay? And with regards to that, I also said before that there are a set of conditions that have to do with feasibility in terms of what sort of an NGO is that can be part of this partnership, because they have structure, because the schools have a minimum infrastructure, because they already have teachers. You see, there's a minimum requirement, and that is part also of what we will be submitting by email through the distribution list. If you help us to gather all this information, it's our duty to see how better we could create sort of clusters of different operations that we could be implementing eventually. Does it answer to your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for this question.
And there were more questions.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I cannot
yeah.
answer on behalf of the MEH, the ministry. Okay.
Yeah, the accreditation that might be granted for the students to let's say a test-based accreditation for them, even if it's something online, not something like paper-based.
Okay, I mean, we would love this structure. I mean, we have our own accreditation. As I said before, this has the level of a standard. No matter whether you appreciate that as a very good standard or not, what I can share with you is who was behind the definition of this standard. Among others, there were people from UNESCO, for instance. Now, the interesting thing would be that eventually we got some sort of certification or acknowledgement from the formal system. That would be very useful, and that goes back to another question. I think it was Mireille you were asking, how can we incentivize? Well, maybe that's a way. If we could partner with the ministry in order for these teachers, teachers need to be motivated also, not only the students, but the teachers as well. If they could acknowledge some sort of certification just for the fact of having used this system for so many hours and having gone through so many kids, that would be another reason for them to use it, okay? So certifying, we can, this is a standard, but I think that it would be very good if the Ministry of Education wanted to sort of partnership with that regards.
We have 15 minutes left. I think it would be useful for us to think of ways forward. What's the next step after we leave this room? I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Doctor. I have a question to you. You're a specialist. What do you think of this program?
Okay, I think that it has potential, certainly for reaching children out of school. I think it's for what? It's a very important question. We need to answer the kids, what do they expect to get out of it in the end? This is a very important issue. I personally don't think it should be parallel, like we're teaching them, you know, this is the boarding way and now we're doing tablets. I think it has to be blended learning. And I think it can be done. The curriculum, what does a curriculum mean? A curriculum means general aims and objectives and some specific subject objectives. It doesn't mean textbook. Unfortunately, in Lebanon, particularly for the government, it means textbooks, but officially it doesn't. So I think a lot of the resources can be designed in a way that can reach and achieve the aims and objectives of the curriculum, but in an engaging way. I think this can improve the quality of learning in public schools and as well as non-formal and in schools who are totally, children who are totally out of schools. Yet I think it has to be very well monitored, assessed, you know, its impact. I think teachers is going to be a main challenge of how to shift them. Most teachers, like even in the Lebanese public university, struggle to use even the internet. So believe it or not, WhatsApp is the most common method of communication if you want to talk to professors. I think also teachers are going to be a challenge, how to give them incentives to continue. And I think in the public sector it's going to be even more of a challenge because teachers in the public sector don't have incentives. You know, they work for 30 years and they leave exactly where they started. Yeah. They don't make any progression. So this is, I think, is one of the challenges. I'll leave it to here. Thank you.
It is education in crisis situation, really. So digital could help tremendously. Is that true?
I don't think it's only in crisis. I think in
more so, maybe.
More so. I think where the quality is poor, I think digital learning might help because that's what kids love. You know, automatically, you know, a 2-year-old child just can't stop playing at a smartphone. So I think certainly the incentive for children to engage in it is much better. But also we have to be very careful about the socialization element. You know, we know that kids are doing too much iPhone and too much tablets, and how to also get them to do other things is also a very important thing. So, yeah.
You know, this particular solution is offline, so they would not start navigating. I mean, at least I'm thinking of the primary school boys and girls. So maybe in the mid-run, we shift the type of equipment, but for this particular range of age, they won't be lost in internet because they won't have access. Actually, the teacher gives them what the teacher thinks should be given, nothing more.
Can I just make a comment? I think that what you pointed out with the blended learning is really what's important here, not so much the changing of the technology, because, you know, one of the things that we need to teach our children is how to tear themselves away from it. And I think, you know, them getting lost in it is a problem. But when we're talking about blended learning and having a teacher properly trained to say, okay, we're going to do this activity now, and then to pull them back and to teach them how to go in and out of reality and then augmented reality.
Also, I just want to mention something is technology doesn't result in better teacher, because that's what research shows. In a better teacher, you need in the end a good teacher. And technology might help a little bit, but it will not make a very bad teacher a good teacher. And I think this is a very important point that research finds out. I think we have 10 minutes. I think we might, people who want to leave the room want to know what's going to happen next. I want to know what's going to happen next. So maybe you can give us some, you know, input into that.
Here we want to thank Norwegian Blood, also the Jesuits, and everybody attended this meeting today. You know, we are ready. We are ready to improve the education of the people, especially the people that have no education. We are ready for that, and also to improve the education of the people that have education. And I think we have all of us here, we have a common challenge, which is to make a better world. A better world, and especially for the people that are more unfavorable, that are in a worse situation. Sorry to say that, but digitalization is going to help to reduce inequality in the world in a very clear way. And this is a fact. and inequality is a problem, and it's going to be, as I was saying before, that a kid in Malawi has the same education that a kid in Berlin, okay? And it was not possible 10 years ago. And a kid in the BK can have the same education than a kid in New York, and this is a possibility. So we are ready. We are ready to do it. We know. I think we have told you what we can do and where we need your cooperation. And we are going to be at your disposal from tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday, no? From Monday, and we have many of your or emails and addresses. We will contact you, we'll tell you, and we want to start, okay? Start.
Over to you.
Yeah, talking about Monday, if you like. Maybe
Monday is a holiday too.
Monday is a terrible day, but what we can do is, if I would be very grateful if the university helped us to identify the Q&A, I mean the QU, we will do the A, we could prepare a Q&A document in order to make sure that we did answer to all your questions, because we didn't have enough time. And so I would love to prepare that document and circulate it. And also, I would like to give you this, an online version, so that those interested in submitting information, and we will also provide the conditions that you were asking, and was not part of the concept note, so I will add on that. So if you send us the information, that would help us to figure out what sort of next step, from a very practical and operational view, would it be, bearing in mind all the potential and possibilities. So two things. First, prepare the Q&A. For that, very grateful if you can provide us with the questions. And second, we would give you those templates so that all those interested, if you want, you can share with us your school information, and then we will work out on that potential next step. Make sense?
No, if I may add, because I think that we have the opportunity that Fadi, the director of education, I think he said basically that he was ready to set up a committee and start, working on that. So I don't know if we could, kindly request maybe Nora or Jumblat just to try to really, follow up on that. And I think that we have some other parties, like for example, Father Michael. So I think that there are people that are more or less ready to start really working on it. So I don't know if Nora can, liaise again with the Ministry of Education and maybe with some of the counterparts that are here that can they, that are basically ready to, in order to be able to have a pilot relatively soon as September, no? For example, my understanding with the minister was that he was ready to work on that. I don't know if it's perhaps.
Mr. Swipe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You conducted very well the meeting. I want to thank you very much. It's very important, and we are very motivated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We want to start the sooner the sooner.
Sure.
I was talking to you, that in some cases like there is, you cannot wait. If you ask me what we think about the refugees, we cannot wait. We have to start. If the university is not digitalized, but it's not such a problem. But the problems that are really there have to be solved now. Okay, and like the refugees and the rest, we will do it. Okay, and we will learn together, which is very important. You always learn things. When you work together, you learn things, and we need to learn a lot, and we need to learn a lot, okay?
Yeah. I want to thank you all, and I want to thank the organizers and the coordinators and the doers and the people behind this idea, this great idea, and what is novel and what is an asset. Actually, this is an asset about this project, is the fact that this is a project that will make education accessible to those who are deprived of having an education. I think this is the primary goal, and this is the noble cause of this initiative. And that's where we would put our hands as AUB with yours in order to make this project hopefully a success. So thank you all for a great morning, and thank you, Maha, for facilitating. And if you want to just say a few closing remarks, I'll give the mic to you. Thank you.
I want to thank you again for your passion. Sorry, I want to thank you again for your passion, commitment, and determination to make the world a better place. I think most of the people in the room are working on this, so it's great to come together. And I hope that we will have in the next meeting a presentation where you will share with us the findings of the pilot. You know, when you have had a chance to try it, I think we will all be very keen to learn from this experience, and we will look forward to it. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. We only have like few more hours between now and the weekend. Yeah, take care. Bye.